my god. Oh my god. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. How many chapters do I have to read today? I feel like I have to read... Also, Bullseye. First, let's fucking go. No, I like... Yeah, dude. I saw your name pop up and I was like, oh, okay. Period, king. I know, I feel like I have to do so many chapters today. That's okay. I'm ready to lock in. I'm ready to go. Also, hi Stan, hi Zen. Your arms are gonna kill. I'll try not to have anything be clipped this go about. Mainly because I have so many chapters to read and I feel like I genuinely need to lock in. So we'll like really try. Hello Harsh. Hello, hello. We'll try and like genuinely go. Hi Kami. Hi Arn. We made an agreement to do 1 clip, 2 push-ups. See, that makes more sense. I would have done like 1 clip, 1 push-up. Or like maybe 1 clip, 2 push-ups, but like that's 10 push-ups was actually fucking crazy. Yeah, Kami, you have permission to mute chat if they get distracting, because I've got to read. Also, Bullseye, that's a crazy comment. Don't disrespect your girl like that. Don't. That's... Okay, chapter 803. Because I have to read to what? Chapter 814? 816? 814, I think? What do I have to read to? $814. Okay, easy. 11 chapters. We're gonna lock in. Amongst all the sanguine present, even if Emlyn wasn't the oddest, he was definitely among the top 10. As a member of the race born with long lifespan, having 1 or more hobbies to kill time was common. Emlyn wasn't the only one who liked dolls, but that wasn't the problem. Aside from purchasing new dolls and making them with new clothes or obtaining blood from hospitals to drink, he almost never left his home, nor did he enjoy interacting with new fellow kingsmen. Unless he desired relatively flesh blood, needed to be obtained some historical knowledge, or exchanged for certain ingredients, he never participated in any of the corresponding gatherings. Such a lifestyle was nearly identical to the aging, high-ranking sanguine who had no choice but to lie in specially made coffins to barely maintain their existence. It looked nothing like the fellow who had recently matured. As a result, Emlyn became a topic of idle conversation at many sanguine gatherings. In the years before, people only mentioned it in passing, jeering at him in private, just like a normal gossip about different freaks in Backland. When they heard that Emlyn walked into the Harvest Church because he got lost or ended up being captured and locked up underground by Earth Mother's bishop, his reputation slid into an inevitable state of being blunt to the jokes, as well as being a disgrace to the sanguine. Yet, the disgraced fellow had hunted 3 consecutive primordial moon believers. Those were artificial vampires. Could it be that he had employed the help of the Church of Earth Mother's clergyman, or did he hire someone specially powerful bounty hunter? Thoughts flashed through the minds of the sanguine as they speculated over how Emlyn had clinched victory. At this moment, Cosimo coughed lightly and said, "Emlyn has already found the corresponding characteristic legacy and became a baron." Baron. What the member of the sanguine looked at Emlyn again. They weren't any looks of doubt or puzzlement. Instead, their eyes were filled with shock, astonishment, and surprise. For the first time in his life, Emlyn was being stared at by his kinsman in such a manner. He suddenly felt ethereal, and his mind was filled with joy. This made him wish to proudly tip his chin and say, "All of you should be addressing me as Lord." This satisfaction is identical to me buying a doll I've been saving up and craving for. Emlyn sighed silently as he surveyed the area. Then, while unbuttoning his coat, he got up and walked to Cosimo Ordora's side. After the other sanguines snapped back into their senses as they looked at the 2 barons with mixed looks, Cosimo finally said, "The champion of the hunting competition will enter the final list of Viscount candidates and obtain free help for the ritual. In addition, he will also receive a ring created by the ancestor." As he spoke, Cosimo took out a silver jewelry box engraved with complicated patterns. Snapping it open, he showed it to all the sanguine present. It was a translucent ring that seemed to be made of light red amber. It had blood-red gems embedded in it. It was the size of a fingernail, and it emanated a faint glow. It's called Lilith's ring. It will allow the wearer to be even more charming and always be in an optimal state of being under the full moon. Cosimo gave a rough introduction. It can make the surroundings be under the effect of the full moon, hence the corresponding beyondic powers will be greatly enhanced. At this time, it can also project the door that leads deep into the spirit world. Cosimo paused and added, "This door is the door of summoning. It can lead creatures deep into the spirit world, used to arrive in the real world. However, it can only be used once in a fixed amount of time. When spirit world creatures pass through their door, it's equivalent to signing a corresponding contract with the weaver, or the wearer. They will serve the wearer for a specific amount of time, possibly around 5 minutes. If the service period needs to be maintained for even longer, the wearer needs to personally communicate with the spirit world creature to re-sign a contract. There's no longer a duration. Under the normal circumstances, the strength of the summoned spirit world creature would be equivalent or slightly stronger than the wearer, but there's a possibility of them being much or weaker or much stronger. There was once a Viscount who relied on this ring to summon a demigod-level spirit world creature. The stronger spirit world creature's strength, the more they can resist the agreement in the door of summoning contract itself and harm the wearer. If you encounter such a situation, you must deceptively dispel the projection and end the summoning. Its negative effects is bloodthirsty disease. You will need to drink at least 1 blood vial of human blood every hour to relieve it. Otherwise, your blood will boil and evaporate. In less than 15 minutes, it can cause the death of a baron. I'm not against that. I do yearn to drink blood more frequently, but the problem is that I'm unable to obtain that much blood." Emlyn held back his joy and agitation as he considered how he would resolve the negative effects. At this moment, Cosimo turned and glanced at him. The additional blood will be provided by the race. Then the problem turns to the modification of a bottle, so as to carry around that much blood. Emlyn scanned the other sanguine, who wore a look of envy and jealousy as he asked, "If I don't wear it, will I get the bloodthirsting disease?" "No." Cosimo finally shook his head. Emlyn stared at Lilith's ring for a second. "If I were to wear it for 59 minutes and take it off, will I get the bloodthirsting disease?" Cosimo's face muscles twitched as he said, "When you wear the ring, you will be inflicted with the bloodthirsting disease. You have to drink 1 vial of human blood to have to sustain for an hour. During this process, if you were to take it off and put it back on again, the bloodthirsting disease will be affected again, regardless of whether it's been an hour or not. You'll have to drink blood again. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "Of course, this isn't a complicated problem," Emlyn said with a tisk. Cosimo retracted his gaze and looked at the other sanguine. "I'll be giving the ring to the champion of the hunting competition, Emlyn White. Congratulations, Emlyn." He turned and extended his right hand towards Emlyn to shake his hand. Then he handed over the blood-colored Lilith ring to Emlyn. "Thank you." He smiled in a reserved manner. Cosimo stopped looking at him and said with the other sanguine, "There are 2 targets left. They are your prey, and there will be a reward for them." At 10 p.m. above the grey fog, Klein received Lamano's travels, with Emlyn had sacrificing it, and had learned of the usage of the so-called Lilith's ring. The other aspects aren't noteworthy, but the thing to pay attention to is the door of summoning, which leads to deep into the spirit world. Perhaps there will come a day when the one passing through the door is an ancient goddess, Lilith. Of course, many conditions need to be met. As Klein made the bold hypothesis, he flipped open Lamano's travels and checked the beyonder powers in which Emlyn had used and replaced. He used up all the lightning strikes. Traveling is gone as well. The fellow really didn't feel the pinch when using all of these powers. He added the Wings of Darkness. I can help the user receive an enchantment at speed and ability of brief flight, as well as transforming into a colony of illusory blood-sucking bats to attack the enemy. One is full moon. It can take a certain region appear in the state of a full moon. When spirituality would be rejuvenated and the aspect of death would grow stronger. This is recorded from Lilith's ring. One of the claw of corrosion. It can cause one fingernails to grow another segment. With mysterious symbols and patterns, they would be sharp enough to slice through steel and would also come with potent corrosive abilities, making the nemesis of defense method like scales and skins. One is animal senses. It can communicate with animals and control them to also sharing the senses. If used well, this has a wondrous effect. I've never seen Emlyn use it before. What a waste. One is the Abyss Shackles. It's a spell belonging to the darkness domain, and it can make the darkness or shadows condense into chain and control and restrain the enemy. There's no door of summoning, that's right, it should be very difficult to record. With Emlyn's personality, he wouldn't give it up after a few failures. As Klein flipped through Leymano's travels, he used divination to his mysticism knowledge to interpret the new Beyonder powers. Retracting his gaze, he summoned the sea god scepter over, added a few pages of lightning strike. This was in line with the fear of lacking firepower. Then, Klein used the sunbrooch to record holy light summoning and holy water creation, allowing Leymano's travels Beyonder powers to become more varied. After doing all of this, he closed the notebook and picked up the mental terror candle. After stealing the split personality in the afternoon, he didn't immediately return the mystical item. Instead, he had the idea that since it belonged to the spectator domain, it's possible that it could help him explore the sea of collective subconscious in Grozel's travels. Therefore, he planned on delaying it for half a day before returning it to Emlyn. To his surprise, he found from his research that the mental terror candle didn't have any effects of placenting the mind, eliminating negative emotions. All it could do was let one enter the depths of a target's mind, and from there one could plant a cue or resolve a problem. Klein heaved a sigh of relief. Though the bestowment ritual, he returned the mental terror candle and Leymano's travels to Emlyn and Fours respectively. Returning to the real world, he had a comfortable bath and he read some papers and magazines before heading to bed. Amidst the reverie, Klein suddenly woke up, aware that someone had entered his dreams. He saw a scene before him changing as the sky was dark and deep. There was additional... Guys, my book is gone. She's gone. She's gone. Is it back? It's back. Is it gone again? It's back. Let's go. The scene before him changing as the sky was dark and deep, there was adorned with the resplendent diamonds that left him astute and serene. The distance away, a singing voice sounded. The ethereal and common voice reached straight into his heart. Meanwhile, the clouds moved, the crimson moon half revealed itself, scattering down in its mild glow. All of this made Klein feel as though he'd arrived in the Evernight Goddess' divine kingdom. In the dream, he has felt relaxed and comfortable. Klein suddenly realized the situation he was in. This is the arrival of a Beyonder from the Church of Evernight. This Beyonder was using a dream as a placide. The tycoon Dwayne Dantes, so as to heal the mental scars he suffered in the afternoon. What are you doing? Only disturbed my sleep. Klein silently sighed helplessly. Guys, I'm reading so fast today. I'm reading so fast. Harsh, don't say that. Don't say that, Harsh. You're gonna ruin it. Things are going so smooth. I'm gonna fucking rip through these chapters. And then we're gonna rock it out. Don't jinx it. Chapter 804, archaeological. But here's the thing. These are also shorter too, because the chapters I was reading previously, they were like 17, 18, 16 pages. These are back down to like the normal 11, 12, 10 page chapters. Those few chapters in like the first section of volume 4 are fucking long. I wasn't complaining. It was just something that I noticed. As he sighed, Klein indulged himself. And relaxed, an ordinary person enjoying a rare instance of serenity and comfort in his dreams. After about 15 minutes, he finally waited to the point when the church Beyonder that was sent to the Placide him after he sent to Placide him had sent to him sent He finally waited to the point when the church's Beyonder that was sent to Placide him had left. Okay. I can sleep in peace. Klein planned on opening his eyes out of the habit before falling asleep again, but he realized that once he wasn't on high alert and on guard, the remnant sense of tranquility in his dream would allow him to directly fall into a deep slumber. That night, the quality of his sleep was extremely good. Bro. No, I can't get distracted. Don't do that. I'm gonna get distracted. But he realized that once he wasn't on high alert and guard, there remained the sense of tranquility in his dreams would allow him to directly fall into deep slumber. That night, the quality of his sleep was extremely good, and he only managed to wake up at daybreak. Outside, the sun had just peeked over the horizon, while the moon remained shining in his sky, and there was a slight howl from the wind. Klein lazily dazed in bed for nearly 10 minutes before picking up the golden pocket watch beside him and snapping it open. Not even 6:30. Should I roll over and continue sleeping, or should I wake up? Klein observed his physical condition. They're literally blue light UV glasses. They're not prescription, and I've said this. I have perfect 20/20 vision, but I also have Looming's disease. So, like, I have these to help with blue light and UV light. I'm not a LARPer. Well, I mean, like, honestly, here's the thing. I would love... I'm sorry. With energy, he didn't have any hint of feeling lethargic. So he decided to get out of bed and wash up before walking to his balcony and take a look at the orange vista. In this season, due to the wind, Backlund didn't have thick smog. Tonight was the environmental measures put into place over the past few months. The skies were often blue and air fresh. The gardeners were already busy in the garden, and the parlor maid and handyman were heading to the market. Other than that, the surroundings were calm and peaceful. This invigorated Klein as he temporarily forgot all of his troubles. He felt that the world belonged to him at this moment. With a faint smile, he silently enjoyed the scenery. In the next 15 minutes, servants would walk out from the surrounding houses in pairs of threes. They were either holding baskets or leading horses. The entire borough seemed to come to life as the sunlight grew brighter. This is what life should be. Klein silently sighed as he had a sudden urge to go stroll. He turned around and left the balcony and walked to the door. Outside the master bedroom, Richardson was already walking outside. It was impossible to guess what time he had woken up. This was the most difficult thing about the valet. He needed to sleep later as the employer, but also wake up earlier than him. There's another hour before breakfast, sir. If you wish for it to be brought forward, the kitchen will be ready within 15 minutes. Richardson didn't ask Dwayne Dantes why he was suddenly woken up so early. Klein chortled and said, there's no need to bring it forward. I plan on taking a stroll first. Very well, sir. Richardson entered the bedroom, and based on his employer's suggestion, he chose a coat that helped him wear it. Finally, Klein wore a silk top hat and held the gold inlay cane before walking down the first floor. Leaving the residence, he strolled down the street that was lined with Intis parasol trees and black street lamps until he reached the other end. Along the way, each resident's garden emanated a faint fragrance as the green leaves of the trees created a sense of tranquility from high above. Pedestrians were pairs of trees on what seemed like a sparse street. The occasional carriage that drove by would break the silence before quickly leaving. Klein enjoyed the morning, talking to the pleasantries of waking up early. He felt that the negative emotions from yesterday were evaporating bit by bit and vanishing. Beyonders need to learn how to create conditions for themselves to regulate their moods. By taking this stroll, and bishops of St. Simon Cathedral will likely know that Dwayne Dantes has completely recovered. They won't disturb my sleep in the middle of the night. As Klein's thoughts wandered, his gaze swept past 39 Beauchamp Street. It was a member of Parliament Match's residence. Its external perimeters was in form of sharp iron rods, allowing passers-by to appreciate the beauty of the garden within through the gaps. While moving his gaze away, Klein saw a familiar figure with Hazel, with her long black-green hair and dark brown eyes. This beauty was a proud lady, was strolling through the garden trails with her maid, looking around from time to time. She woke up early as well. Her quality of sleep was excellent because she doesn't need to head down to the sewers. In the middle of the night, Klein lampooned and retracted his gaze and continued proceeding forward. Glancing at Richardson, who was silently falling behind him, Klein suddenly thought of his news reports, magazine articles, and novels that had recently read about the southern continent. Guys, we're talking about the southern continent. We're going to talk a little southern here. Can a white girl get a little southern? Yeehaw! He consistently kept up with the content of the region because that would flesh out his persona. After all, this was all he knew about the southern continent, stemmed from pirates, adventurers in the fog seas, strongest Hunter Anderson. We had no idea they exaggerated her fabric. I know. I gotta stop. The information I've read recently in the past were about people who struck at the rich in the southern continent before returning, or had just decided to stay there. This makes Backland residents believe that there's gold everywhere in the southern continent, and that there are opportunities to strike it rich, even common wood and sap. He can be used. Oh my god, I have to fix my camera. He can use or be many things, allowing one to exchange for plenty pounds. This is why the kingdom frequently goes to war with countries like Fasak and Intis, spy for the colonial lands. If not for the commoners' inability to save up for the ferry tickets or dare to smuggle themselves there, I'm sure large numbers of people would swarm it. As Clyde Slott's world, he casually asks the ballet, "What's your impression of the southern continent?" He remembers that Richardson was born in a manor over there. He had only been brought to Backland when he was an adult. Richardson paused for a few seconds and said, "Sir, actually do not know much about the southern continent because I was spending most of my time in the manor. I had few opportunities to head out. Just tell me of your impressions, your true impressions. You don't have to hold back. I just want to have a general understanding. As you know, they all believe me to be an expert of the southern continent, but in fact, my experiences are only limited to few places and merchants." Klein said with a chuckle. Richardson nodded and bowed his head and looked at his toes, walking forward. "My impression of the southern continent is hunger, exhaustion, pain, as well as pining for the world after death." Oh. Hunger, exhaustion, pain. Klein repeated those 3 words as he walked into Boakland Street without making any further inquiries. Yeah, I feel like that would also shut me up as well. I don't think I'd have any more questions after that other than, are you okay? Do you need to talk to someone? Eastchester County, in a building beside Stowe University. Audrey was looking at a collection obtained by the Relic Search of the Preservation Foundation. She had originally planned on coming on Tuesday afternoon by Associated Professor McElduth, fucking stupid name, had participated in the academic convention in Backland. Therefore, he only returning today. As a result, she had no choice but to change her plans. The pair of boots was discovered by a farmer in the mountain ruins of Stowen. Its shape and traits matched the social trend of the Fourth Epoch. Michael introduced the item inside the glass cabinet in the beautiful aristocracy. Audrey looked over with interest and discovered that the ends of the boots were curled like clouds. The height of the curled parts were uniform. One was 3 centimeters and the other was 5 centimeters and didn't look like a pair. The Fourth Epoch's asymmetrical style. Wonder what level it is for 3 on the left and 5 on the right. Audrey retracted her gaze and followed Associate Professor Michael to the next exhibit. At the end of the tour, Michael... Is it Michelle or is it Michael? It's Michael. Pointed to the glass case diagonally ahead of them and said, "This coat of arms was delivered a few days ago. It involves the very ancient worship of dragons." Dragons. Audrey strode forward in a reserved manner and said, "The grayish white dragon with its wings spread out engraved on the coat of arms. Where did it come from?" Audrey asked just as she did before. Michael answered, "It's from a village named Hartlarka." Okay? This Loanese word doesn't have an archetype in ancient Fasak. Apparently it was written like how it is read. Ooh, dude, I love tier lists. They're so fun. This, the village which I previously visited, had the folk tradition of worshipping dragons. In the sea of collective subconscious for the other people, there's a mind dragon in it. The 20-year war notebook, which previously obtained the Associated Professor Michael, was from the local kingdom named Lindel Era. He was suspected to have something to do with the mind dragon. Audrey nodded and thought as she deliberated over her words, wishing to ask about the person who had found the coat of arms. At that moment, Associate Professor Michael's expression turned abnormally heavy. Accompanying the discovery of the coat of arms was a tragedy. A tragedy. Audrey didn't hide her surprise. Hi, Merlin. Dude, you arrived so early. We have like 9 chapters to do. How'd you do that? Did you finally break the curse? Associate Professor Michael sighed and said, and do you know what would be crazy? Is if the whole system just shut down. How fucking funny would that be? if it all just shut down and like the Wi-Fi kicked out. Oh, dude. Or somebody comes into my house. Somebody comes into my house and just like kidnaps and or like murders me. Please no. That'd be so awful. A tragedy. That's what that would be. Audrey didn't hide her surprise. Associate Professor Michael sighed and said, an archaeological team entered the village and studied the folk traditions of worshiping dragons, but at night, one of them members went mad. And the mental illness was apparently contagious. The entire archaeological team later went mad, killing themselves or each other. In the end, none of them survived. It was Amon. It was Amon. He did it. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Merlin, I'm happy to have you here, but now that you're here, I'm kind of scared, fearing for my life. Something's about to happen. Something's about to happen. Members went mad, and the mental illness was apparently contagious. The entire archaeological team later went mad, killing themselves in front of each other. The coat of arms was found among their remains, and the first taken away by the police, and after confirming that it was without problems, only then did they donate it to us. An archaeological team entered the village, and members all went mad one after another. Audrey's eyes dilated. She inwardly repeated Associate Professor Mitch's words. Suddenly, an idea came to mind. Psychology alchemists. The members of the archaeology team were members of the psychology alchemists. Dude, I said it was him, but I never said I blamed him for it. Like, I'm Team Amon. I think that he is probably gonna be my favorite character, and you can clip this. You can use this later on. I'm stating it right now. Amon is gonna be my favorite character. Ride or die. Yep. I'm pretty sure every single one of my friends is in a relationship but me. Yeah. I think they're all in like happy relationships too. Yeah. I think I'm the only one who's gonna die alone. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride, as the saying goes. Chapter 805, meeting up. Inside the Relic Search and Preservation Foundation, Audrey. Yeah, that's what it is. No, dude, I think I can't remember the last time I wasn't a third wheel. I'm not even kidding. Like, I hang out with my girlfriends and like we all chill and like hang out. But whenever they have their partners, I'm always just like, yeah, I'm just here. I don't know what to tell you. Forever, dude, forever a bachelor. That's why it's my last name. Yep. I don't know. I kind of like... Here's the thing. I'm at the point where I'm so single. I don't know what it would be like to not be single, you know? You know when you get to that point? Like, when you are so alone, you don't know what it's like to actually not be alone and have someone? Yeah. I think that's what it is. I'm sorry, I'm stalling. I gotta log in. No, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I could, but I just don't want to. And I just don't actually think they would like me. I feel like I don't think I'm a lot, but I'm definitely not a little, you know? Anyway, she took note of her body language and expression, and she drew the crimson moon on her chest with a half-genuine manner. She said with a sigh, "What a tragedy, I hope that their spirit can rest in peace." The reason she had guessed the archaeological team had compromised of members of Psychology Alchemists, and she had previously received the mission to help the organization obtain a notebook related to the 20-year war of the Associated Professor Mitchell. And this notebook belonged to the king of... fucking hate this word. Hartlakar. Village Lindelaria. Back then, Audrey had made a request to Mr. Fool and relied on a magic mirror divination to determine the origins of the notebook. She discovered that it was deeply connected to the village and worshipped dragons, as she knew ahead of time that there was a mind dragon hiding within the sea of collective subconscious. She ultimately chose to hand over the notebook to the Psychology Alchemist in consideration of her lacking sequences and strength. This also meant that the Psychology Alchemist had quite a significant chance of locking into Hartlakar village through the notebook before heading over to find their target. Another factor that Audrey used her judgment was the strange mental illness that an archaeological team suffered and spread like plague, causing the people to go mad in batches. In the real world, there was a probability that mental illness was here hereditary, but it was almost impossible to be contagious. But in the mysterious world, in the world of mind and consciousness, chaos and madness can be spread to others through spiritual channeling, dreams, and subconscious. The hidden in Hartlakar village was a mind dragon that had lived for years. The Psychology Alchemist had found Hartlakar village through the notebooks, and threatened mind dragon used ingenious methods to spread mental corruption. He might have achieved this through the sea of collective subconscious. The Beyonder world, sure is a dangerous and small team, must have been formed by a selection of Beyonders, but they ended their lives in such a simple and ridiculous manner that as Audrey thought about it, she was glad that she had made a significant rational decision and didn't willfully use the Knight's Notebook to explore Hartlakar village. Otherwise, there would probably have been an additional name to the list of members who went mad. Thanks to Mr. Fool, thanks to other members of the Tarot Club, thanks to Kalangos, who previously infiltrated in disguise, they allowed me to still recognize the hidden dangers despite my lack of actual experience in the domain of mysticism. It made me sufficiently cautious, Audrey silently thought in gratitude. At that moment, her recalling her performance when she first joined the Tarot Club had made her wish to bury her head in the pillows and roar at herself. Audrey, you were that naive and immature back then. Thankfully, you met Mr. Fool. If it weren't for any other secret existence, you would have long gone mad and turned into a monster. Mr. Fool is such a nice man. No, he's not. No such a nice orthodox god. Not a god. By the side, our Associated Professor Michael noticed that Audrey had been silent. He said with a heavy note, "Yes, it truly is a tragedy that strikes one with fear. I only wish that the government had already handled the matter and prevented the contagion of mental illness from becoming plague. Don't worry, unless that mind dragon loses control and plans to change the three churches, there won't be any more victims of the mental illness." Audrey replied silently. From her point of view, the official Beyonders had already taken up the case. After all, a contagious mental illness is definitely going to be under the purview of the official Beyonders. Therefore, the dragon coat of arms in the glass case must have been determined by the fine before being donned to the Foundation. The police department didn't have such authority. While Audrey felt the pity for her archaeological team, who were suspected of being psychological alchemists members, as though she had experienced a tragedy for herself, she was curious if the mind dragon remained in the vicinity of village. So, hey buddy, how you doing? Long time no see. To hide the sea of conscious subconscious, to hide the sea of collective subconscious, the one's actual body would probably make it difficult to discover. However, the three churches have long history in the Fourth Epoch, and even earlier they must have had bouts of mind dragons, so perhaps they have corresponding records about it. Besides, the psychological alchemist is in control of the spectator pathway and has existence of the high sequence Beyonder. Their compensation comprehension of the Sea of Collective Subconscious can be much weaker than the Mind Dragons. After suffering a terrible failure due to the lack of information, they will definitely send a very powerful team. Although the Mind Dragon was stronger than the psychological alchemist expected, it probably would stay there and be discovered. It should have left. Audrey made an interference based on what she knew. She didn't have any thoughts of visiting Hololala village to figure out the truth, because she long knew that the present her lacked the strength and deal with the Mind Dragon. Her only interactions were to mention of the matter of the next Terror Club and see if the other members could provide any feedback or any valuable knowledge. For example, it might be that the Mind Dragon had entered the Sea of Collective Subconscious because of the local worship of dragons, or it could be that the Mind Dragon inhabited the Sea of Collective Subconscious, caused the villagers to dream of it, thus being subconsciously influenced by having the tradition of worshipping the dragon. On Friday afternoon, Klein received an invitation list for the ball tomorrow. He began a serious memorization of the topics. I love how Dario came in, and I don't even think his first message went through because it's fucked up. But then he goes, "Oh, wrong live, sorry." Because he knows that it's this live and not a different one. First off, fuck you, Dario. Second off, welcome. On live Friday afternoon, Klein received professional provoker. I don't even think you guys saw what he fucking put. Yeah. Saying crazy fucking awful shit. Sorry, locking in. He began to seriously memorize the topics that needed to discuss the different guests. When meeting members of Parliament match, I need to make remarks about the recent good air in Backland and make a few jokes about the Lone Kingdom Imperial Science Institute. As Klein memorized each line, he suddenly heard a stack of illusory pleas. I know, I'm locked in. A man based on how long it's been, and most likely Mr. Hangman. I thought Klein put down the piece of paper in his hand and gulped down the mouthful of black tea before leaving the half-open room with the big balcony and head for the master bedroom's bathroom. He took 4 steps counterclockwise and went above the grey fog as he discovered that it was indeed the Hangman. This man requested the Honorable Fool to introduce the world that had been arrived in the capital of the Rorst Archipelago, City of Generosity. Bayham, he couldn't head for the primitive island in 2 days after he resplended his supplies. He wanted the world to begin preparations so that they could meet in time. He also indicated that the lack of means to the head of primitive, he could arrange for the world to secretly board the Blue Avenger. It's just right here. Anyway, and bring a bunch of sailors from the Church of Storms to the vicinity of the primitive island. How long can the segments end? Ask anesthetic gas you brought from Emlyn last. Will there be enough time to explore? Klein thought for a moment and conjured the words Garen Sparrow, making him pray devoutly. There's no need to go through such trouble. He should have freedom of movement in the Bayham. Meet the center outside the city of the midnight tonight. Well, there you go. Before that, resplendent in your stories. Bam. I'm just gonna keep reading. Bam is in an inn. Alger frowned slightly after hearing the word Garen Sparrow's words. He did have freedom of movement in the City of Generosity, but that was because the sailors were eager to hand in the places like the Red Theater. There was definitely nothing returning tonight, and after the waking of the day, it was almost certain that they would have the casino to gamble and let themselves loose. It was to vent the repression and misery that resulted from drifting out at sea for extended periods of time. It also meant that even if Alger disappeared for the night and day, no one would discover it. Is the world implying that we now use the interval that is indeed better for using the sanguine anesthetic gases? If someone is already suspicious about waiting for the theory to be valid, but without a ship, how do we head for the primitive island? Oh, they managed travels. Miss Magician didn't mention how the beyond her powers in teleportation. However, there's only one page making it impossible for the return trip. Alger relied on the strong ability to connect matters to vaguely guess that Garamond Sparrows. Oh my fucking god. Intendant, but he believed that the necessary conditions were lacking. These were the doubts in my mind. He found the contract with the resistance and resplendent in the storm that were made with tin. When it was 11 at night, Alger secretly left his inn and hailed out of the city under the shadows. He wasn't worried that the sailors would discover his disappearance because he too had physical needs. I can help him with his physical needs. It was possible that he was sleeping in a lady's bed with the Red Theater and he was unwilling to return. And there were many such brothels in Bayham. With many prostitutes in existence, it was impossible to say that there was something wrong with him because he was at the Red Theater. Once he left Bayham, Alger walked to the narrow road where horse carriages could pass and headed for the mountainside of the mountain range beside the sea. Suddenly his gaze froze, noticing something under the crimson moonlight illumination. The mountain that originally exhaled it vanished. And the area underneath, such a piled stones, vegetation, and terrain changed almost completely. This, Alger had come from the Resistance pirate harbor earlier, hadn't managed to pay close attention to the mountain, hence he only noticed the abnormality at that moment. The mountain collapsed. It actually collapsed. Oh! Dumb ass. Such an idiot. This is the mountain from the end of Volume 3. Understanding. Big brain over here. What the fuck are you guys talking about right now? Also, the church's deacon said that Garamond Sparrow nearly destroyed Bayham and the matter had demigods involved. Both of them occurred during the same period, could be used to cause Garamond Sparrow. He instigated the demigod level battle, but he managed to successfully escape while killing Admiral Blood. Alger's people dilated and footsteps slowed down and halt. He suddenly understood why the Church of Storms had pleaded great importance to Garamond Sparrow, and why he was a bounty worth so much as 50,000 pounds. In the underground cemetery up ahead, the cold wind blew across and towards Alger's silent night. It made him tremble involuntarily. At that moment, Alger's heart stirred as he turned his head to look right. Underneath a giant tree, a figure quickly outlined itself in the shade. The figure had its hand on the top hat while he slowly looked up, revealing a thin face and cut features. The emotionless dark brown eyes were none other than Garamond Sparrow's. Time to log in. Entering me. I'm so excited. Yay! This is all I wanted. Bro. Don't worry, I'm locked in. I'm actually locked and loaded right now. I'm bricked up. Sorry. I'll make it smaller. Bye, Sal. What was your last message? I don't even look at your last message. Like, last message on the Discord or last message on this? I don't even look. Bro, leave the forehead alone. I don't know. Oh, I'll pin it. Pin message. I pinned it. There you go. I did it. Okay. Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready? I feel like I need different music for this, though. Like, I feel like, bro, should we go back? Where's the pirate music that I was listening to? We're going back to our roots. We're going back to our pirate music. Because the pirate is here. Don't worry, I'll use other music as well. But we're back. We're back. Okay. He did teleport over. How extravagant. Alger tensed up before relaxing. However, he did not let his guard down at all. Upon meeting Garamond Sparrow again, he discovered that there wasn't much of a change to him. However, his every action had the indiscernible air of a powerhouse, and the profundity he exuded left him apprehensive. Ah! Oh my god! As expected, a crazy adventurer who can instigate the battle of demigod proportions while escaping unscathed. The slight bit of smugness is having become the Sequence 5 vanisher from Alger. He slowly walked over, the lantern in hand. When he saw Garamond Sparrow, he deliberately probed. The traces he left behind might not vanish for the next few centuries or even millennia. Oh! Bro, I would love traces of him to not vanish. He was trying to... I can't control myself. He was trying to confirm the mountain collapse had nothing to do with Garamond Sparrow. Klein shot a glance at modified terrain and released his grip. We're here. Let's go. Glance at the modified terrain that released his grip on his top hat and smiled genuinely manner. The one continued to the most causing the damage was Seeking. Man, he actually triggered a demigod battle and could have destroyed Bayham, causing Seeking to directly attack. Yet, despite such circumstances, he survived and left with Admiral Blood. It's completely unimaginable and unlivable. Alger began to suspect that Garamond Sparrow had a grade 1 sealed artifact on him, an item for the demigod level. He didn't expect his shock and surprise, nor did he dare to probe further. Instead, he asked, "Do you plan on heading to a primitive island now?" Of course, Klein answered calmly. It was late at night, a period when Dane Dantes was asleep. No one would disturb him. But he had to show himself once again at daytime. Of course, to prevent any unexpected circumstances, Klein had summoned a Rhodes to monitor the mere illusion and provide a response. It's all thanks to the Church of Evernight for having endlessly dreamed tempted of a tycoon. Otherwise, I would definitely have to delay the operation. Klein couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Alger observed himself and discovered that he wasn't able to obtain the mystical item such as a short span of time. He took out an iron black ring that prompted out like a thorn and wore it on his left thumb. Bearing the excruciating headache, he nodded slightly. I hope for a pleasant partnership. Then he saw Garamond Sparrow walk over with a stoic expression, reach out his hand and grab his shoulder. In an instant, Alger's first reaction was that Garamond Sparrow was attacking him. He instinctively wanted to turn to the side and dodge the attack, only to recall his previous guess. Amidst his racing thoughts, he withheld his subconscious reaction and allowed the crazy adventurer to place his palm on his shoulder. On the heels of that, he noticed Garamond Sparrow's left hand turned transparent, as though it was bearing the shadow of the spirit world. Then the blacks before had eyes grow darker, and the crimson moon turned bright. All kinds of colors seemed to layer upon one another. Countless nearby formless figures receded backwards as though it tore through the spirit world in Garamond Sparrow's help. Creeping hunger teleported, so that's how it is. Just as he had such a thought surface in his mind, he saw his body plummet to the saturated colors around him receded. Everything had returned to normal. Beach, reefs, trees, and the desert island. Alger surveyed the area and was about to speak when the colors around him saturated in layers. Phenomenon once again happened. This time he left the spirit world he was in mid-air and undulating waves beneath him. Though Alger had never worked with Garamond Sparrow in actual combat before, the experienced him immediately created a spiraling wind that allowed him to float, an intact display of teamwork. Hence, the teleportation triggered successfully. Once again, Alger and Gehrman's figures rapidly phased away. When the surroundings were worsted again, the two had arrived at the periphery of the gigantic island. There was a heavy mist in midair that the crimson moonlight was unable to fully penetrate, and not only failed to disperse the darkness of the forest and mountains, but it was also added to the eerie charm of it. We're here. Ah! Yay! Yay! Let's go! Okay, give me my music. Give me my music. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. It might glitch out a little bit. That's okay. It just is what it is, you know? Sometimes it just glitches out. And I have to accept that. Oh, we're doing a little back and forth thing? Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Klein wore an indifferent expression, but in fact, he was cautiously observing the surroundings. He found the place extremely quiet. There weren't any birds tweeting, wolves howling, or bugs chirping. It exuded a deathly silence. As though guessing his feeling, Alger raised his lantern and illuminated the shrubs ahead. Where then was a natural tail made of a beast-type footprint, he said, "If you come in the day, it will be quite a lively sight. You will see birds that only exist in mists that fly in forests. But at night, the power that rules this place will change. Many beyonder creatures will hide as they await daybreak." Didn't like for me. Mr. Hangman had come here more than once. At the very least, he had experienced the day and the night here. Klein silently nodded without speaking further. Alger thought for 2 seconds before pointing ahead. "If we follow the trail and enter the Black Forest all the way to the end, we will arrive at the ancient ruins of the unknown age. On that way, we can hunt the beyonder creatures that we encountered and are able to deal with. If it's killed independently, the corresponding ingredients will belong to the killer. Those who jointly killed will be held in your custody. When we leave this place, we can take turns to choose. We will determine the owner based on the contribution to decide who is the priority to choose, as well as the number of priority choices." Instead of being the rush to take action, her first made clear the route and planned to split the loot. It was to prevent any conflict that would result from expoliation. "To let me have custody of the loot we received from a joint kill. Mr. Hangman is being very sincere." Klein raised his right hand and pressed down the top half and chuckled, "No problem." Alger heaved a sigh of relief and continued, "Our main goal is to explore the ancient ruins. The spoils we obtain along the way are supplementary. Once we finish the exploration, it's best to leave immediately without heading to the other zones and taking other paths. As for anything in the future, it's up for you to decide when you'll be able to explore." Alger emphasized this matter because he was afraid of Gammon Sparrow's greed. After all, Beyonders were not perpetually machines. They were bound to a point when they were exhausted after a round of explorations. They were bound to be close to their limits. They were to force themselves to hunt Beyonder creatures in other zones. Perhaps the identities of humans and prey would switch. Even if the crazy adventurer was very powerful and unafraid of such dangers, it would be a state of drained spiritual world triggers, signs, and losing control. Do you think I'm not sharing the same thought as you? I'm the one worried that you'll be the one who's overly greedy, rashly proceeding deeper just to obtain more. Klein smiled and said, "I'm a polite person." Polite. Alger was a little puzzled by Gammon Sparrow's choice of words. The corners of Klein's mouth curled as the expressions turned darker and darker. When visiting someone's place for the first time, overstaying would be impolite. The fellow's train of thought was logical behavior is completely different from that of normal persons. As expected of the crazy adventurer, Alger was first taken aback before he raised the lantern and took a few steps forward into the dim red shadows. Let's set off. Klein allowed his hands to naturally droop down as he walked beside Alger like he was on a hike. The two quickly entered the dark forest and had nearly zero moonlight shining in. They saw that trees were thick and tall with luxuriant leaves. Even the smallest trees were thick than the span of a person's arm. And the trait they all had in common was that the bark appeared scaly. They were densely packed together as though they would come to life in the squirm at any moment. It's like the muted drago tree, the snake-scale tree. Klein retracted his gaze and noticed the weeds at his feet that didn't seem problematic. None of them spoke, as they maintained the state of abnormal silence. They didn't wish to say anything to eliminate the awkwardness, just because it was too quiet. As they walked, the duo saw distributions of trees. Ahead turned sparse, thanks to the lantern's light. Thump, thump. A dull knocking sound echoed through the area. As Alger and Gammon approached, it became clearer and more obvious. When the duo entered the sparse area, the lantern's light finally revealed hunched and prostrate figures. Amongst these figures were humans, baboons, goats, and tigers. They were either holding rocks or using their claws and teeth to constantly burnish and stack trees and rocks, as though they were building a palace. Without the obstruction from the luxuriant leaves, the crimson moonlight that perpetuated the leaves' mist cloaked these figures, dyeing their faint blood-red layers. They're humans. Klein's eyes focused as they immediately spread his left fingers. Alger slowed down, preparing his vocal cords to be activated at any moment. Suddenly, the figures seemed to sense something as they stopped their actions in unison before unformally turning around to look at the two outsiders. They neither had pale faces, withered skin, or festering bodies. None of them looked alive. Corpses. A beyonder creature is driving these corpses to build a palace for it. Klein cast his gaze past them and saw a dark cave that led into the ground. The surroundings were covered in weeds, white feathers strained with yellow oil scattering among them. Feathers, corpses. These instantly reminded Klein of the products of the Numinous Episcopate official death project, as well as the infectious aura that made him grow feathers. The Zone Sovereign won't be weak. He calmly made a judgment. At that moment, Alger, who had carefully observed for the while, hesitated for 2 seconds before suggesting, "I've never seen such a situation before. I'm not sure of the lovely beyonder creature. Why don't we circle around it and close a target which we have more confidence in?" Instinct told him that something extremely dangerous was hiding in the dark underground cave. "I was waiting for you to say that." Maintaining his persona as Gammon Sparrow, Klein heaved a sigh of relief as he chuckled. "Will this be impolite?" Just as he said that, a land quaked as though the creature beneath them was rolling over in its bed. Lovingness. Lovingness for them. Mediocre luck. Does Anderson come back? Is it just Anderson? He's just chilling. He's just like, "Hey, bad luck. It's just me. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." I think I would love it if it was just Anderson. He just like popped up. Mainly because I miss him. Because Garrettman's back. We could get him. We could get Donitz. We get the gang back together, you know? Chapter 807, Mediocre Luck. Sensing the land quake, Alger's heart tightened as he glanced at Gammon Sparrow, using the actions to replace his words. The sound of wind howled beside him, allowing him to run more easily and quickly step aside. Similarly slowed down. The blood vessels and forehead pulsed. I don't like that sentence. Run more easily and quickly to the side. The reason why Alger had done so was because he was worried that Gammon Sparrow would suddenly go mad and decide to hunt the terrifying creature inside the dark underground cave. If that were to happen, even they ultimately clinched the victory, it would have been extremely disadvantageous for the subsequent explorations. Bro, sorry to pause. I just read that word perfectly. As an experienced sailor, he knew that decisive action spurred companions who received indecisive into subconsciously following his actions. Upon seeing this, Klein heaved a sigh of relief as it gave up the distinction of politeness. He widened his stride as he ran behind the hangman. Following that, he sensed a strong wind blow his feet, thrusting him forward. This significantly reduced his need to overcome gravity, allowing him to obtain additional mobility, and instantly doubled his speed. Amidst the rustling sound, Klein and Alger ran out of the sparse woods and circled around the flank of the eerie darkness. At that moment, their heartbeats suddenly slowed, as it was as though they had been engaging in intense exercise and were at the state of reverie as they resulted from tanning in the afternoon sun. It was tanning. Klein immediately felt his body turn cold, and the inexplicable and baffling sense of glooming arose that they tried inevitably invading his body. Meanwhile, he saw the light from Alger's lantern be swallowed inch by a gigantic black shadow. A corresponding scene naturally surfaced in the mind. In the depths of the dark underground cave, a thick, humongous serpent snaked out. It had dark green scales with exaggerated eyes and seemed to burn with a fire. In between its scales were white feathers covered in yellow, oily stains. Along the black pair of thick wings could be spread. While slithering and flying, the giant serpent raised its body high, coiling around the thick trees and extending in the pitch-black tongue. It stared intently at the two figures as they barged the surrounding areas. Around it, the trees were rapidly withering along the weeds. Countless corpses burrowed out of the soil as invisible shadows splurged to the side. Feathered serpents. It's a feathered serpent. In the southern continent, it was a symbol of holiness. It was emblem of the descendant of death, the Eggers family. Klein and Alger didn't pause as they held back their coldness of bodies as they slowly heartbeats under the intense winds and changed into the depths of the dark forest, pulling the distance away from the sparse trees. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. The duo's heartbeat gradually returned to normal as the coldness of their bodies were dispersed by the heat generated from the intense exercise. Klein's spiritual intuition told him that the danger had passed, hence he slowed down his pace and turned to the Gans' back. He said calmly while facing the depths of the darkness, "A demigod-leveled feathered serpent." A demigod-leveled. Alger simply slowed down as the blood vessels in forehead pulsed. Connie, where's that next music? Where's that next music? Connie, where's that next music? Sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, back to the previous music. Oh, okay. That one's my bad. I'll just go back. I'm so sorry. Anyway, where was I? Pause. He paused for 2 seconds and exhaled lightly. Don't worry about it. The bionic creatures here are not very territorial unless they wish to hunt. They will not enter our other zones, especially when they're near the mountain. The feathered serpent wouldn't chase after us. Klein nodded and said the bionic creatures here are very strong. Alger retracted his gaze and replied with a shake of his head. No, there are other many weak ones. I've been here at night before, but I've only discovered the traces left behind by bionic creatures at the demigod level without encountering them. I actually encountered one this time. Such matters are mainly about luck. The chances of this happening again isn't too high. As a seafarer, being able to calculate was a necessary ability. Are you looking down on me? The king of yellow and black who wields good luck? Klein gave a self-deprecating laugh as he said with a deadpan expression, absolutely, judgment often results in the opposite result. Then, translated into Earth speak, it was, don't raise death flags. In fact, it wasn't a feathered serpent in the demigod level, it was instead something at sequence 5. Klein would be happy to bully it. After all, with Azek's copper whistle in hand, the beyonder creature of the death domain would lose at least half their combat strength. As for encountering a beyonder creature at the demigod level, he wasn't too alarmed. This was because the hangman had previously mentioned it, and he had made the corresponding preparations. He had the Fate Siphon Charm, 3 pages of the demigod level beyonder powers in Laymanus Travels, and the ability to travel, although it wasn't necessarily the case, and he could resist the demigod. I'll just do the next chapter. It was enough to help, I only have 7 pages. It was enough to help him create opportunities to escape. As long as they didn't encounter angels, Klein silently added inwardly. After hearing Garamond Sparrow, Alger was somewhat puzzled, and because the crazy adventurer was clearly forming through more careful and cautious, a cold and crazy fellow, that's right. He was just crazy. He would have to live this day. Alger looked up at the sky as he tried to hurry and look past the mists of the distinguished blurry stars. After 2 minutes, he retracted his gaze and pointed in the direction We'll head in that direction. Klein had long drawn his iron black death now. He allowed the muzzle to naturally point downward as he silently followed alongside. Alger wore a cold and composed expression as no signs of anxiety. After traversing the extremely dim forest in some time, Alger suddenly stopped. As he looked to his left, and he said in a deep voice, "If we head forward more, there will be an illusory chime tree. I hope to handle it by myself. The second beyond a creature will encounter will handle to you. I won't involve myself in the hunt. Unless you can't handle it alone." Alger swallowed the second half of the sentence. He wasn't like the hunters who were often seen at sea, people who often couldn't hold their tongues as they habitually said things and infiltrated others. The main beyond ingredients which Miss Justice needed, Mr. Hangman was quite a bit of an adventuring expert under these belts. He knows that being frank at times is more useful than concealing matters, and that negotiating is more effective than scheming. Klein maintained Gammon Sparrow's personas. He nodded with a hint of gentlemanliness and aims his coldness. "Okay. If you can't deal with it, it's best that you shout for help, otherwise I'll treat you to persistence." The style of crazy adventure appears to be different from hunters, but in certain aspects they're surprisingly similar. Alger silently drew a breath as he continued forward with his lantern. As they walked, they heard weak chiming sounds, and they immediately felt as though they were home, their bodies and their minds at ease. Klein acutely sensed that their wariness and mettle away from the invisible manner. No matter how much he emphasized to himself, he was unable to tense up. At that instant, he even had the urge to head for the source of chimes, believing that there was something extremely dear and familiar at him located over there. As they were quite a distance away, the chiming was sporadic. Klein was barely able to hold himself back as he turned to look at Mr. Hangman. Alger no longer looked at the stade as before. His eyes and his rugged face were silently red. It was unknown if he had recalled something that caused him to plunge into some emotional state. "I wonder what Mr. Hangman looks like when he's crying." I don't want to. It must be quite terrifying. Klein couldn't help but muse. "Klein, you fucking sociopath." At this moment, Alger said softly with a hoarse voice, "Leave it to me." Just as he said that, he put down the lantern and slightly turned to the sinister ring on his left thumb. He made the protruding thorn and looked like a stade with old bloodstains turned bright. This was his mystical item whip in his mind, and side effects was placed to the wearer in the state of a constant headache, one so bad that the wearer would yearn to slam their head against a wall. However, at that moment, the excruciating headache made Alger maintain his basic lucidity amidst the chimes without being truly hypnotized. At times, the side effects might actually provide benefit to the wearer. As Alger remained pugnant, he took out a wooden box from his pocket and snapped it open. Inside was a grey rat. Mr. Hangman wished to use the rat as bait, so as to attract the illusory chime tree's attention before taking the opportunity to attack it. Not bad, he made adequate preparations. He already had a detailed plan ahead of the time. As an experienced adventurer, Klein instantly guessed at Mr. Hangman's thought process. Alger had the rat and shook it with expression turned odd. The grey rat was no longer moving. It was breathing, and it was cold, and it was unable to make responsibility of being a bait. Back when he encountered the demigod feathered serpent, although Alger was a periphery at the entity's focus and had escaped quickly without being overly affected, the grey rat he carried with him was only an ordinary animal. It didn't have a strong constitution and vitality, so it perished from the effects of the feathered serpent. It's dead. It's dead. Mr. Hangman now understands the principle. Plans often can't keep up with change. His luck is mediocre. Upon seeing the scene, Klein couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. He wanted to laugh, but he didn't make a sound, afraid that it would destroy his persona. Such situations were rare, and they experienced the meticulous Hangman. Alger quickly reined his emotions as he proceeded forward in the dead grey rat. Klein bent down and reached out for the lantern as he unhurriedly followed behind him. The chimes grew clear as he made them more and more silent, and the urge to run towards it became greater. After taking another few steps forward, Klein finally saw the strange tree. Above its brownish-green trunk was thin cracks. Deep inside, each crack was darkened and looked as though different eyes were growing inside them. The branches that extended outward had chimes like metal-gray objects hanging from them. They were swaying automatically, letting out melodious sounds, and on the branch closest to the trunk, there was a first-size, colorless, translucent fruit. Alger stayed in the direction as he pressed his throat before saying to Gammon Sparrow with a heavy voice, "It's best you cover your ears and converge your spirituality." Chapter 808. Awful singing. I'm gonna sing for you all. Upon hearing the hangman, Klein's heart skipped a beat as though his ominous premonitions. He ignored his persona, put down the lantern, and took out 2 slips of paper. He then crumpled them into a ball and stuffed them into his ears. Seeing Garen Sparrow do it without any questions, Alger heaved a sigh of relief. He reflected on how nice it was to work with an experienced fellow. Even though he was an adventurer known to be crazy, he was someone who followed reasonable instructions. He knew what not to do. Just as he was about to throw the dead rat, which still rained some of its warmth on the illusory chime tree to divert the attention, he suddenly saw the shrub snake with its yellow-skinned, black-striped tiger appear. Amidst the melodic chimes, the tiger walked towards the strange tree normally, but its eyes were glazed over. It felt indiscernibly creepy. When Alger saw this, he lowered his arm and abandoned his attempt of throwing the dead rat. Resisting the headache, he calmly watched as the tiger walked closer to the tree due to the growing influence of the melody. It crouched down, raised its right claw, and bared its claw, slicing itself at the neck. Despite the oozing blood, the tiger seemed to have lost its sense of pain. It continued digging in deeper, engorging the wound before it began to skin itself, revealing a naked body covered in mangled flesh and blood. The chimes gradually weakened as the branch suddenly came alive. It extended downwards, stabbing into the tiger's sorry, unprotected body. Alger, who was already prepared, immediately drew his dagger, opened his mouth, and sang hoarsely, "Break, break, break. On thy cold grey stones, O seal, break, break, break. At the foot of thy crags, O seal." His voice had bold overtones, but it was completely out of tune. It was completely odds with the comprehension of both human and creature. It was a jarring boom that had a metallic sound to it. It was filled with the power that left one frustrated and disgusted. Meanwhile, the illusory chime tree's branches trembled as they retracted. They were huddling together, following the melodic chime, lessened in terrifying noise to a small extent. At Alger's side, although Klein had used paper balls to stuff his ears and had converged his spirituality, he immediately felt his forehead blood vessels throb, as he instantly had the urge to kill the singer and destroy everything before him. Furthermore, his mind had a feeling of being ripped apart. His muscles and vessels were squirming as a result. Other charge people money to sing, but Mr. Hangman's singing charges you with death. Klein lampooned as he resisted the indiscernibility in his heart. Break, break, break. Every word Alger said burst out like waves, shrieking reefs. Bolts of silver lightning descended in turns as though the euphoric phrase. As silver flashes lit up one after another, they smote down the illusory chime tree surface, causing it to tremble indiscernibly, insensitely. Its branches shook the numb and random manner, making it difficult to produce the melodic, hypnotic music. Alger took his opponent and threw the dead rat and thrust the dagger into his hand forward. With the howling wind, invisible blades swooshed over, slicing the branch at the top of the nearest illusory chime tree trunk. The colorless, palm-sized, translucent fruit tree, as it was swept up by the gust of wind, flew into Alger's palm. The tree bark, which was covered in eye-like cracks, frozen, remembering branches drooped down, having lost their ability to move. Indeed, as long as you gathered the correct intel ahead of time, beyond a vegetation at the same level is a lot easier to deal with animals due to the lacking intelligence. Alger took out a golden container he prepared and put away the illusory chime tree's fruit. Then he turned around and looked at Garen Sparrow. Let's continue. He suddenly stopped speaking at the words, forward vanished from his vocal cords. At that instant, he saw Garen Sparrow's cold expressions looking somewhat warped. The whites around his brown irises were slightly red, as though he would unleash an attack upon him at any moment. Alger felt tense as he slowly drew a grasp, completed his silence. Let's continue forward. Let's go. Garen Sparrow replied softly. His first circled around the withered illusory chime tree and walked deep into the dark forest. He didn't get any bark, branches, or materials that were rich in spirituality because they were bound to encounter many beyonder creatures later. Furthermore, he didn't have any so-called storage artifacts. Naturally, he left whatever space he had worthy wild spoils. Besides, having too many things on him would only weigh him down and prevent him from fully displaying the agility of a clown. Unfortunately, there were materials with any vitality or blood, making it impossible to enter Grozel's travels. I can let my marionette bring them in, but that will be very troublesome and detrimental to the subsequent explorations. As Klein sighed, he calmed his mind, extracting himself from the remnant effects of Hangman's singing. This was the most jarring and terrible singing that he had heard in both his lives. If the hangman continued for another 1 or 2 minutes, he couldn't guarantee that he couldn't stop himself from beating him up. Using just paper balls to stuff to my ears and converting my spirituality can only weaken the effects. There's no way to really block it out. Even a deaf person can hear it. This includes the exact exchange that is spiritual level. This is probably the most insufferable attack from an ocean songster. Furthermore, there's no way of dodging it once it happens. There's only lightning strike, which can be dodged ahead of time. This is rather powerful sequence 5 as well. However, why does Mr. Hangman's singing feel completely different from the elven songster's Citus? As Klein summarized that... Bro, I'm so excited to see... I'm so excited to see that shit get animated. That's gonna be so funny. As Klein summarized and analyzed the experience, he was somewhat puzzled. At this moment, the lantern holding up Alger was... Wait, what was it? Alger suddenly walked beside him and distractedly commenced. At that moment, the lantern holding Alger, who was walking beside him, couldn't help but consider a question. Even Garamond Sparrow can't stand my singing. How should I act as an ocean songster? In a silent environment, the two quickly proceeded forward amidst thick trees and appeared to be covered in snakeskin as they approached the ancient ruins. With the seafarer beside him, Klein saved himself the trouble of using dowsing rod seeking. He focused on watching out for any other sudden attacks. The dark, silent environment resembled the horror stories as the two proceeded forward an unknown amount of time. Oh, it didn't even go through. That was a crazy comment. This was completely different from the situation back when they met the demigod fathered serpent. The tree there had abruptly become sparse, while what they were encountering was now progressive changes. It made the misconception that they were about to leave the dark forest. After passing through the zones, we will arrive at the periphery of the ancient ruins. Alder broke the silence. He paused and then added, seemingly caused. Based on my experience, it becomes more dangerous as we approach it. The signs of a demigod creature found last time was approached here. However, oddly, the periphery of the ancient ruins doesn't have any signs of beyonder creatures. However, I have no need about deep inside it. This is probably because there's an even more terrifying existence inside the ancient ruins. That zone is its territory. So other creatures do not dare approach. Klein mumbled inwardly. He had a sense for danger level in the expedition. He had previously performed the corresponding divination above the Great Fog. The revelation he received was that its ups and downs as well as the problems. However, leaving safety wasn't much of a problem. After the hangman said that, Klein chuckled. You likely know what my guess is. He didn't say anything further as he entered the zone with sparse hesitation. Alger silently walked beside him, increasingly convinced about his judgment of Garamond Sparrow. He was calm and crazy. After proceeding dozens of meters forward, they suddenly saw the pair of ghostly blue eyes that's situated at where the lantern's glow could reach. I'm going. It was black baboon crouched in a branch, and its fur was naturally curled, and its hair grew black crystals. These crystals grew upwards in random manners, forming a strange crown. Upon seeing the black baboon, Klein and Alger simultaneously had the urge to bow their heads and not look directly at it. They felt as though it was the ruler of the nearby region, their sovereign. Fucking the Jungle Book up in here. Sovereign Alger relied on the excruciating headache, which was the whip of the mind brought in order to escape the influences. He hurriedly took a step to the left in an attempt to avoid any direct clashes. He left the unknown beyonder creatures to Garamond Sparrow. They had agreed to it prior. However, despite walking to the left, he ended up walking forward. His legs also hobbled, as though he suddenly needed crutches. Subconsciously, Alger drew his dagger, causing sharp wind blades to swish towards the curly-haired baboon. At that moment, the baboon grinned. The wind blades suddenly changed their direction in mid-air, moving in every direction at randomly to perfectly avoid hitting the target. Upon seeing the scene, Klein gave up on his plans to approach through the ordinary methods. He left glove instantly turned transparent and it turned into invisible. Alger stopped his actions and pursued the street. When he saw Garamond Sparrow at the top hat appear and the black curly-haired baboon, the distance between them was less than 5 meters. It's just Benson. Right on the heels of that, the black curly-haired baboon body abruptly stiffened as though it lost control of most of its body. It even tried hard to raise its palm, trying hard to dig at its eyes in an attempt to distort something. At that moment, Gavin Sparrow had already made use of the delay to raise the iron-black revolver in its right hand, aiming the dark barrel on its head. Then, without any emotions, the crazy adventurer pulled the trigger. Do, 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 do. Bro, I've read so many chapters today. Oh wait, no, not. Oh my god. I'm struggling. I'm struggling big time. Got it. I've read so many chapters today. Look at me go. Bang! The loud gunshot reverberated in the space and open region as it extended outward. If it was an ordinary island with the ordinary forest at night, it would have alarmed the birds and the beasts, sending them scattering everywhere. But here, everything remained quiet. So quiet that it didn't seem like any living creatures existed. As for the black, curly-haired baboon, its head had burst open, splattering blood and brain matter everywhere, like it was raining. The black crystal at the head shattered as well, with not a single piece remaining intact. Klein bent his arm and slowly retracted Death Knell, which was still spewing out smoke. He watched as the mutated curly-haired baboon's stocky body, one more that the muscles, then the human collapsed to the group. By approaching with traveling, forcefully controlling the wraith, and seized an opportunity to deal with the lethal strike of Death Knell. It was an instant kill. Klein wasn't doing this to flaunt his strength, but via his observation. He believed that the mutated curly-haired baboon had unique powers. If he didn't quickly finish it off, well, I didn't understand anything about him, there was a very high chance that the situation would be reversed, making the battle rather tricky. Besides, on such a dangerous primitive island, it was imperative he avoided situations from escalating, for no one knew what things could be lured in the intense battle. Therefore, after Klein possessed the mutated curly-haired baboon with the wraith, he gave up on more reliable and more unnoticeable methods of controlling spirit body threads because it took longer. Instead, he chose to cock the gun and used Death Knell to finish off, while it was stiff and slow as a result of the wraith's influence. The effects were identical to his expectations. The possible incident that could happen midway were as he imagined. With the help of disorder, the mutated curly-haired baboon did possess the ability to extract itself from the unfavorable situation of the wraith's possession, and it would allow the bullet trajectory to violate the laws of physics, avoiding its body. Unfortunately, its effort had come to an abrupt stop before it could change in effect. Klein had seized the brief moment of sluggishness to deceptively deliver the lethal strike. If he had switched to controlling spirit body threads, the outcome might never be different. It's worth it to suffer a weakness for this. Furthermore, there's a high chance of me needing to use Death Knell later. Compared to the realizing what I'm afraid of in a more dangerous environment, it's better to know that the problem ahead of time and avoid similar situations. That's a better option. Klein followed his revolver and allowed to point downward as he walked to the side of the mutated curly-haired baboon. At that moment, under the wraith's control, the Beyonder characteristic of the Beyonder creature rapidly appeared. Alger held out the lantern as he watched the scene from a distance away. He took him nearly a minute to snap back into his senses, frozen in mid-air. Frozen in his mind was ultimately the scene of the flare from Gavin Sparrow's muzzle and burst head of the curly-haired baboon. The disorder they encountered at the beginning has made him understand that the Beyonder creature they had encountered was a sequence higher than that of an illusory time tree. It was a relatively difficult creature to deal with, one that required sufficient caution during combat. Furthermore, there wasn't any guarantee of victory, yet Gavin Sparrow was finished with the battle in 3 seconds. Yeah, he was. Do we expect anything less from the king himself? Nope. 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 The speed at which it happened was as though he was exchanging the target practice. Being a Sequence 5 Beyonder as well, the difference was unbelievable. Combining the short-distance teleportation ability and the strange power that can be controlled an enemy for a certain amount of time, along with the astonishingly potent revolver that effective and unimaginably terrifying, if I were to encounter it for the first time, it would have definitely been killed instantly, and even if I'm prepared, I would be easy to resist it. The best solution is to use my singing to affect the surroundings indiscriminately. It will prevent Gavin Sparrow from successfully completing the teleport as expected of the crazy adventurer with a bounty of 50,000 pounds. Even without Mr. Fool's help, just him alone is weaker than Admiral Helm. It's possible that he's even stronger. While singing poignantly, Alger reined in as though he had considered how to deal with the situation if he were the curly-haired baboon's shoes. Compared to the description of others and his own guesses, witnessing it himself were far more convincing and shocking. Inside the corpse of the curly-haired baboon, where the shattered black crystals was a faint blob of light, quickly appeared and converged together, turning into a translucent pitch-black fist that was tightly clenched. Indifferently to their tongues, the first produced a feeling of strength and sinisterness. The palms, lines, luster, and fingernails seemed to follow ordinary principles, but they were filled with abnormal charms that seemed to hide large amounts of madness and disorder. Sequence 5, Mentor of Disorder. From the Black Emperor pathway, I wonder what weakness I received. I hope it's not too odd. I can use Death Nail as much as I want in the next 6 hours. As Klein muttered, he bent down to pick up the bionic characteristic and store it in a perpetual mental container. In fact, he could attempt to graze the curly-haired baboon and see if it had obtained the corresponding beyonder powers of a mentor of disorder, but as to swap away his glove of barren corruption, ultimately he gave up on the idea, since he wasn't sure what the beyonder creature had done to make him deserve such a torture. His encounter had been an encounter on the battlefield, ensuring his enemy's death was nothing out of the ordinary, but grazing as an extreme excruciating pain that left the soul yearning for liberation. Klein had his own principles of stubbornness. He didn't easily violate them, and he often cautiously chose his targets. Of course, to him, creatures of low intelligence were not the same as humans. Even if he attempted to graze it, it wasn't crossing the line. However, many of the past experiences told him that the persisting of the kept his principles and not relax the requirements for himself. It was not only a moral question, but was something to prevent himself from losing himself. He couldn't keep pursuing the envelope just because he thought it was nothing. As the trivialities accumulated, it would eventually result in a terrible mistake. In this crazy and chaotic, mysterious world, actions aren't for others to see, but for myself. A person can fool humans and even deities, but they can't fool themselves. I wonder if high sequence beyonders from the spectator pathway can fool themselves. As Klein's thought raced, he took out Grozel's travels that he hid near his chest, intending to smear the curly-haired baboon's blood over the cover. At that moment, his heart tensed up, and his hair along with his neck stood up. This was an intense premonition of danger. In the premonition, no scenes had surfaced in Klein's mind. Not good. Klein instantly found his heart warped in the layers of shadow, as everything before his eyes seemed to be covered in layers of dark glass. Without the luxury of time to consider what was happening, the glove on his left palm turned translucent once again. His figure turned invisible before he appeared beside Alger, reaching out to grab his shoulder. At that instant, Alger also sensed the abnormality. His heart contracted and expanded like the source of storms, as his blood surged through the veins and arteries like a tidal wave. Meanwhile, he saw Cameron Sparrow's right hand, which was grabbing his shoulder. From the fingernails, it was turning gray and turning dry and dull bit by bit, just like any stone that could be found anywhere in the dark forest or its feet. Knees and muscles were turning stiff, as though they were no longer belonging to him. The two fingers quickly turned transparent as they vanished from their location, entered the saturated and clearly overlapped spirit world as they quickly traversed into the direction of an ancient ruin. Suddenly, the red, green, black, and other slacked colors before Klein's eyes uniformly darkened as they produced fine patterns that resembled raven black hair. Raven black hair. A chill rose up from the souls of Klein and didn't hesitate to leave the spirit world with the hangman and return to the real world, where they landed in an area mixed with rubble and weed. Not far away was a mostly collapsed building. Through the corners of his eyes, the hangman had already turned grayish white from the waist down, as though he had turned into a stone sculpture. Klein snapped his fingers, igniting the grass tens of meters away in preparation to leap over. At that moment, he suddenly felt his heart palpitate as his body began to tremble involuntarily. The appearance of a soaring flame was terrifying to him. The weakness Death Nail gave him this time was fear of fire. Seeing the dark glass thicken before his eyes, Klein felt the hollow wind sweep him up from below before he could overcome the fear, causing him and Alger to fly up, passing through the invisible border and entering the vicinity of ancient ruins. The duo fell to the ground, simultaneously producing the sound of crashing rocks. The thick shadow over the hearts vanished as the danger that hid in the darkness receded like the tide. I know. I'm so locked in. I've read so much too. Uh, he felt his physical condition was rapidly recovering after he left that zone. His back was covered in precipitation and soaked in his shirt, and what left him most horrified was that he didn't know what monster had attacked him or what powers were used. Did Death Knell's gunshot alarm some monsters in the vicinity, or was it the existence that rules over the forest at night? Thankfully, it doesn't dare to enter the vicinity of ancient ruins. This isn't necessarily good. This means that deep in the ancient ruins is something that makes it fearful. I should be prepared to retreat at any moment. Klein stretched his hands and slowly stood up. At that moment, Alger escaped from the grayish-white layers as he turned his head and glanced over. The zone was petrifying us. That zone? Petrification? Klein nodded and thought as he walked towards the mostly collapsed building that was strewn in weeds and covered in vines. He then replied in a deep tone, "The problem now lies ahead." Alger didn't speak further as he sped up his pace, steadily walking by his side. After approaching After approaching, Klein looked at the building. His gaze swept the spires and the stone columns, as well as the damaged walls remained standing. He stopped and asked, seemingly cautious, "What kind of building do you think the ruins was in the past?" Alger remained silent for a few seconds before saying, "Cathedral." It was a cathedral. Guys, I never thought I would read this much. So I think we can all now admit you're the problem. It's not me. A cathedral. Where came from the same judgment? Klein looked at the ruins ahead of him and silently muttered to himself. At that moment, the tiny amount of crimson moonlight that penetrated the mist had scattered into the collapsed building. Compared to before, this was a lot richer in color, almost approaching the color of blood. Klein maintained Gammon Sparrow's trademark cold attitude as he said in an unperturbed manner, "Where did you previously explore?" As he spoke, Klein glanced at the lantern in the hangman's hand, which remained unstable, and despite all the ordeals, he subconsciously tensed up his muscles and skin when he saw the glow from the flame. Although the flame was ultimately contacted by thick glass and metal frame, it still left him a little afraid. Alger didn't notice the minute changes in Gammon Sparrow as he raised the dagger, whittling right hand, and pointed to the grandest building amidst the ruins. There, all that was left in the building was the main structure. It was impossible to know what was originally looked like. The only things that could be determined were that the thick walls were narrow windows and building scale. The magnificent fucking translation was not translating there. Furthermore, it once had a spiring clock tower. It had a Spartan facade and an ancient architect. This is the architectural style from the early 4th epoch. There are records of these in the Church of Storm's canon. It's said that the period is various churches used styles to build their cathedrals in a widespread fashion. Alger had a deep immersion on the ruins over the years. He had flipped through many books and had acquired quite a bit of background. Its greatest trait is that the temple found above the catacombs found below, life and death, were both unified. However, I cannot confirm that the ancient cathedral's interior is as I described, as I never ventured deep into it. This might be an architectural style left behind from the 3rd epoch. Klein made a guess as he walked straight to the opening of the ancient cathedral's ruins' abnormally huge door. By keeping a lantern beside him, enjoying only the light emitted from it, he didn't need to suffer from the fear of fire. The duo quickly moved up the grayish-white stairs to the ridiculously high as they arrived at the door inside, and opening inside, they saw remnants of stone columns and arches that extended upwards towards the center. Klein was in a rush to enter. He reached his left hand into his pocket and took out a gold coin as he allowed it to weave something in his fingers. While seemingly muttering something, suddenly he flipped the coin and opened his palm to await the descent, while saying to the hangman, "How did you determine that the deep in the cathedral is something to be of value that is not less than that of the cards of blasphemy?" After he said that, he looked at the gold coin that had fallen into his palm before putting it away. Alger pointed inside and said, "I've said before that my strength was inferior to Kalango's, and I didn't go as deep as he did. I had no idea what he saw, other than the judgment that there was something extremely precious and important aside from his remarks. Furthermore, it was something that only a true Sequence 5 could obtain. However, the murals near the entrance and the marks on the grounds might be able to explain something." Klein nodded and walked through the doors opening that the crimson moonlight was unable to illuminate. The black trench coat he wore fluttered gently behind him as Alger held up the lantern and clenched his dagger and falling behind. Passing through the opening, Klein used the crimson moonlight that shone from the opening and dawned the halls of the considerable depth ahead. A few of the ancient stone columns supporting it had already snapped. At the end, there wasn't an altar, nor was there an ancient staircase that led upwards. It was completely dark and difficult to tell the details. It appeared as though it led underground. It isn't a temple above the catacombs beneath. The temples underground in the catacombs. It's impossible to determine that. We'll know only by venturing down. Klein subconsciously glanced around the discovered side doors along the two sides, but the religion they led to had completely collapsed, with no unusable path. The mural near the entrance had marks on the ground. He recalled that the hangman had just said that he took 2 diagonal steps before releasing the invisible Wraith Senior. With his night vision, he began observing the remaining murals. The mural background was towering and magnificent mountains. It was peak as it was gigantic across the lustrous and glow. At its peak was a gigantic cross that was covered in the lustrous glow. In front of the cross were grand and normal figures that were clustered around. There were angels with 2 wings, 4 wings, or 6 wings. This, Klein didn't curiously glanced and felt a strong sense of familiarity. He had seen similar mirrors back in Blasphemer Amon's mausoleum. When he forced again, Klein quickly noticed the difference. There weren't 2 infants that represented Amon and Adam, nor were there any 12-winged angels. The grand figure in front of the cross held its arms to its chest and held an ancient Spartan slate. The slate was drawn in an extremely indistinctive manner, yet it felt both ancient and young, holy and sinister. It was an extreme contradiction. Slate, Klein's pupils dilated straightly as a specific term flashed in his mind. Blasphemy slate. This is likely the ancient sun god, the Lord that created everything which the City of Silver worships. Indeed, the blasphemer slate is closely related to him. I wonder if this is the first blasphemer slate or the second. Klein roughly guessed at the cathedral's worship entity, and he also began to believe that the depths of the ruins had items that were very valuable and important. He withdrew Senior's gaze and allowed the marionette to turn to the face of the ground. Apart from the slates being covered in cracks and some odd marks remaining, they were dark red in color, smaller than the human forehead. They overlapped with one another at times and extended all the way to the ends of the hall. At that instant, the scene naturally appeared in Klein's mind. Devout believers were prostrated on the ground as they proceeded forward, slamming their foreheads heavily. Why do we keep bringing up foreheads? It's a sensitive subject here. Heavily on the ground after covering a certain distance, leaving blood oozing out. Noticing Gammon Sparrow looking around without any scrutiny, Alger probed the ancient sun god. At that moment, he felt a baffling sensation of cold wind blowing from Gammon Sparrow's side. He suspected that hidden around them were shadows or wraiths, recalling the strange restraints that mutated curly-haired baboon was under. Alger made a vague theory that he did voice out. Buddy. The hangman's question, Alger had wanted to chuckle and reply, "You can also call him the Lord that created everything, the omnipotent, omniscient God." But he felt that such a tone and choice of words was close to that of the fool and not Gammon Sparrow. Hence, he held himself back and nodded slightly. It's not hard to tell. Alger silently heaved a sigh of relief as he held the sense of anticipation for the item buried down underneath the cathedral. The two simultaneously decided to walk towards the end of the hall. When they approached it, Klein finally saw the staircase that led downward, an underground area. He asked succinctly. Alger shook his head. "I can't be sure. I've never gone down." Although Clangus had attempted to venture in, he returned in less than 10 minutes, with his aura becoming relevantly weak. Klein nodded thoughtfully and said in passing, "You seem to be very familiar with him." If it were said by anyone else, Alger would have pretended to have not heard, or to answer directly, but deep in his heart, the world Garin Sparrow was Mr. Fool's blessed. His question could possibly represent the intentions of the existence, so we need to view them as seriously. After deliberating for a few seconds, Alger said in a deep voice, "We were fellow townsmen, and we were servants at the same cathedral. The priest there was an easily irritated person who enjoyed punishing the servants. Klangos couldn't bear it and escaped secretly to become a pirate. So there was such a past. Mr. Hangman is also a man with a story." Klein didn't probe deeper as he headed down to the staircase in extremely silent cathedral ruins. Although his footsteps were extremely light, they still sounded obvious in an environment that echoed. Soon, yeah, I think we're all picking up what Alger's putting down, and I'm not really liking it. Soon the two of them came to the end of the staircase and saw an opening of an arched door. On both sides of the opening there was two shadows that stood there silently in immune fashion. Klein and Alger halted at the same time as they looked at the two shadows, only to discover that there were two stone statues. They were both men, with their surface being grayish-white. One of them wore full-body armor, while it resembled a barrel, while the other worked in a jacket that looked more contemporary. Their expressions were withering in pain, and their eyes protruded as though they were glaring at something. Upon seeing this scene, Klein realized something as he recalled the encounter outside. He and Alger had also shown signs of petrification, and it was thankful that they extracted themselves of the effects, or they might have become real statues. Don't tell me they're humans who met with the same situation. If we had been purified, we would be moved down here, standing guard at the door opening for centuries of millennia. This source of purifying power isn't afraid of these ruins. Klein felt explicable horror as the scalp tingled. He controlled his emotions and turned his head to look at the hangman. He discovered that the pupils of the boorish man at sea had similarly dilated and was clutching his dagger tightly. Mr. Hangman had come to the same conclusion without me needing to speak further. Klein pointed at the door opening and said there might be even more stone statues inside. Alger nodded as he sighed worriedly and jokingly, "Let's hope we don't see ourselves. If we're convinced that we have escaped the effects of petrification only to see our statues in an underground area." She's starting to go. We were doing so good. There it is. Especially catching the dark catacombs, and then it might cause unwanted developments. Therefore, it was best to extinguish the flames. He had night vision. And he believes that Mr. Hangman was able to read between the lines. Alger replied frankly, yes. As a beyonder of the sailor pathway who could dive back, it was given that he had night vision. Klein glanced at him without a word, but his meaning was obvious. They were still using the lantern. Alger seriously replied frankly, "It's to misdirect the enemy into indistinctively believing that I don't have night vision because of my..." No, I didn't. His true meaning was that the light of the lanterns was especially eye-catching in the dark catacombs, and that it might easily cause unwanted developments. Therefore, it's best to extinguish the flame. What lines did I miss? Oh. Sorry. Then why are you still using a lantern? Alger seriously replied, firstly... Oh, what I just said. Yeah. Alger replied seriously, firstly, it's to misdirect the enemy into indistinctively believing that I don't have... I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I do read it in my head and forget to read it out loud. Guilty as charged. When they destroy the lanterns and they don't have night vision because they use the lanterns. When they destroy the lanterns and try hard to create dark environment and give them pleasant surprise. How sinister. Klein was momentarily at a loss for words. Alger continued, secondly, it's to avoid situations similar to the City of Silver. There might be extreme danger lurking within complete darkness. Makes sense. Klein didn't insist that Alger extinguish the lantern. He first stepped on the past two stone statues under the pained frozen gaze. He stepped into the entrance and led underground. As he didn't know what the petrified statues represented, nor did he know if they were completely dead. Klein didn't attempt to shatter them to obtain their bionic characteristics and mystical items. Wow, Klein, so nice of you. See? Klein cares. Choose me for governor. Because you know what? Klein cares. After passing through the door opening and going underground, there wasn't a sliver of natural light in front of Klein or Alger. The ceiling was intact. Okay, I'll read this chapter slowly. Intact, preventing any crimson moonlight from seeping through the penetrating the mist. Alger raised his lantern in his hand, lighting up the area ahead with limited dim yellow gold. Klein took a glance and discovered at least 6 stone statues of both sexes. They were entirely grayish-white in color, and even their clothes looked like they were engraved. These stone statues included elves, giants, and humans, and had an ancient dress sense. Apart from their frozen expression of pain and despair, there wasn't anything similar. Klein felt a chill down his back when he saw their eyeballs watching him without moving, having made the connection that they were once alive. Ooh, no. He felt that darkness ruled the depths of this passageway, as though a terrifying monster had wielded its mouth and as it lay in wait for 2 to walk into its belly. Reining in their stirring emotions, Klein and Alger remained silent as they passed through the grayish-white statues that warped expressions, and they proceeded forward. After walking for more than 10 seconds, Klein didn't need to use Senior's night vision to see the damaged and dark murals thanks to the lanterns. There were a few murals that were relatively intact, allowing them to recognize that being depicted. There was no doubt focused on the cross that glowed and the grand figure that stood before it. This blurry and solemn figure either faced cities that had been flooded, stepped upon fractured lands, or looked up at the cosmos, where it locked eyes with parts of evil and maniacal eyes. When the apocalypse happens, the ancient sun god will rescue this world. This is somewhat similar to the murals that Little Sun and others found in the True Creator's temples, or perhaps it's just plagiarism from both sides. With no one giving up on the working towards this goal. After all, this emphasizes that they were once a messiah and the deities worthy of one's faith. Fuck me, dude. Klein quickly swept his gaze across the wall as he slowly entered the depths of the passageway. Alger was also observing the damaged murals when he suddenly suppressed his voice and said, "I suspect that the true fallen creator's description of himself has referenced some of the content here." Indeed, everyone has the same views. Klein lowered Death Nail and chuckled. "I won't be surprised if we see matters related to the true creator up ahead. That might be a particular connection between him and the creator of the City of Silver believes in." Alger agreed with Gammon Sparrow's judgment. The duo continued ahead as they tried hard to soften their steps. However, there were some echoes that reverberated in an extremely silent environment. At that moment, Klein's spiritual perception was triggered. He immediately took 2 steps forward, pulled himself up in front of Alger, blocking out most of the lantern's light. Less than 2 seconds later, he heard a dull sound emanating from afar. Thump, thump, thump. The ground shook gently as the sound became clear. Then Klein saw a figure nearly 4 meters tall walk out. It was also grayish-white in color, with armor plating patterns engraved on its body. Its head had goat horns, and its mouth that resembled a hound, its half-open mouth revealing snarling fangs. And what attracted attention to the most was its pair of eyes, which were burdened red with 6 pairs of white membraned wings. Thump, thump, thump. The monster held an 8-meter-long stone trident. Klein's about to get a new trinket. Let's fucking go. As it slowly entered the passageway, it shook the land with every step as its great weight was spread out. Although Klein hadn't seen it before, he instantly recognized what it was. It was a Sphinx-winged gargoyle. Its core crystal was one of the many ingredients of the marionettis, and the beyonder powers it possessed were extremely special and indefensible. Based on an external build, and from what I've made of it, it definitely has extremely potent combat strength while not being afraid of most damage. All it needs is cause terrifying damage to storm over and perform a downward smashing with the stone trident. Klein relaxed his left hand and wasn't in a rush to react. He and Alger remained on the spot and used his body and the others' clothes to conceal the lantern's light. Thump, thump, thump. The six-winged gargoyle didn't look towards the duo and instead passed through the passageway, its footsteps slowly distracting themselves from the item. Indeed, it's not very perceptive. It's no wonder Kalangos was able to venture deep down and return safely. Klein proceeded forward again, but the footsteps were undiscernible and went past the crossroads. In fact, with its current strength and gear, and his understanding of the target, killing a six-winged gargoyle wasn't something too dangerous. Furthermore, the hangman could provide him with help. The reason why he gave up attacking it was because he had no idea how many six-winged gargoyles there were in this catacomb. Once a battle ensued, any large commotion could result in them swarming over. When that happened, they could only escape using traveling. In addition, if they were to stir the existence in the ruins that would nearby beyond creatures were afraid of, the problem would only worsen. Curbing one's greed was a premise for risky exploitation. Alger was also rather pleased with the crazy adventurer's calm and rational actions. His suspicion was that Gammon Sparrow was under orders of Mr. Fool, thus resisting his urge to attack the six-winged gargoyle. The calmer he appears, the crazier he'll be when he encounters the true target. As this thought flashed through Alger's mind, he followed Gammon Sparrow straight down the crossroads. The murals on both sides remained damaged, and they were still describing the greatness and holiness of the ancient sun god. Finally, Klein and Alger arrived at the ends of the passage. Here, there were 8-meter-tall stone double doors. It depicted various symbols of death, sleep, end, new birth, and beginnings. A tomb. Klein turned and said to Alger. Alger nodded and said it might also be a temple. Clearly, he was also wondering if it was both a temple and a tomb. The grayish-white stone doors before the duo wasn't shut completely, and it cracked open, a tiny gap. That allowed a child passage. Alger glanced at the floor and walked towards, putting the lantern down and securing his dagger. He pressed his hand to one side of the door. He slowly drew a breath as he bent his knee and arm muscles swelling suddenly. Suddenly the gap widened significantly. Klein pricked up his brows when he saw the scene, feeling somewhat astonished because the hangman's pushing on the door didn't produce any sound at all. He didn't doubt the songster's strength, but he didn't believe that it could prevent the stone doors from making contact with the ground. As he moved his gaze down, Klein saw the pool of slightly sticky liquid gather under his foot. He quietly produced a lubricant effect. Mr. Hangman is very meticulous. Is this the power of the seafarer or an ocean songster? Probably also used his powers of the windblast to control an air cushion, thus resulting in the door silently opening. Klein roughly figured out a reason. Although he approached the stone door, he wasn't eager to enter it, though the widened gap was observed this side. Gross. The scene inside reflected an eye in the wraith was a corner of the room where was a row of grayish-white stone coffins. It was indeed a catacomb, as whether it was also a temple was unknown for now. As Klein thought, he took out limb out his travels and left hand on it were beyond our powers that were suitable to handle matters related to the death domain. Meanwhile, he used his daggers to quickly create a wall of spirituality and sealed the iron scar case that prevent Aztec copper whistle from causing the death to rise from their graves. Alger also drew the dagger again and placed his left palm over it before sliding his palms outwards. Amidst the light cracking sound, the dagger swirled with silver bolts of lightning and snaked outwards. Having made the preparations, Klein, who was acting as the crazy adventurer Gammon Sparrow, was first to pass through the door and into the tomb. Of course, Wraith Sr. had already acted as a scout by circling the tomb before entering. To a marionettist, there was no need to take risks on many matters once they had a marionette. The tomb ceiling was soaked with the water droplets, a clear indication that the humidity in the room was divided into two regions that each had 12 grayish-white stone coffins. In the middle was a circular region where they appeared to be a beautiful and complicated picture placed on the ground. Klein didn't approach it as he stopped Alger. Then he controlled Senior to appear as he quickly floated to a spot above circular region. Admiral of Blood. Alger's facial muscle twitched as though Alger's facial muscles twitched. Although he had already guessed so, he couldn't stop his subconscious reaction when he saw it with his own eyes. Back to the other music. I'm assuming. Oh, new music. We got new music in this bitch? Hell yeah. I love it when we get new music. Do 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 do. This better not be. Oh, it's not. I thought this was gonna be that one fuck ass song that you always give me, and I just about lost it. I just about had a bitch fit. Why? It's back. Okay. One of them had ripped the fingers. Oh, okay. At this moment, Senior Descendant was able to fully take scene in the central region. The picture had dark, dull colors in the background being filled with blurry figures. In the foreground was a long table. On the table was a figure with resplendent cross glowing from it. Surrounding the figure were 3 people shrouded in colors. I didn't skip lines! I went all the way back to the top! Although he had already been guessed, he could do... I didn't skip any lines. Although he had already guessed so, he couldn't stop his subconscious reactions as he saw his own eyes. At that moment, Senior Descendant was able to fully take the scene in the central region. Okay. I know, I skipped lines at the very beginning, but then I went back. Because I was, trying to figure out where I was. The picture had dark, dull color in the background being filled in with blurry figures. As the foreground was a long table. On the table was a figure with resplendent cross glowing from it. Surrounding the figures were 3 people shrouded in sandals. One was handsome and youthful, and another solemn and bold, the last looking wise and with a white beard. The 3 pairs of eyes exuded the indiscernible sense of evil, just like the actions of their owners. One of them had ripped off the figure's arms, stifling it into their mouth and gnawing at it as blood was filling their mouth. Okay. Another held up a brain and sucked at its juices while the last hung out a beating heart, chewing it in a ravenous manner. The contrast to them in the figure chest was a long and wide crack. Sitting across-legged, there was a dark and sinister infant who was masticating on the intestines that had flesh and blood gushing down. These 4 entities seemed to sense someone prying into their act as they looked up in unison, as though they were staring at any being that placed their eyes on the picture. Okay. I think they're just trying to have a happy little family meal, honestly. How dare Klein ruin family time? Fuck. Killing myself. Okay. Upon clearly seeing the picture through Senior's vision, Klein's heart raced loudly that he couldn't even hear it. As a seer who was good at interpreting revelations and symbolism, he felt blood gush to his head, leaving his head swelling. It seemed to prevent him from engaging and thinking deeper into it. Even so, there was ethereal voices belonging to him that resounded in his mind and was filled with alarm. That figure is dismembering and eating, representing the ancient sun god, the Lord that created everything, an omniscient God, which the city of Silver believes in. And I've seen the 3 evil figures surrounding him before. In the underground ruin of Backland, that place that sealed the terrifying evil spirits, they existed in the form of statues, and they didn't look at evil as the picture depicted them. They each respectively represent the eternal blazing sun, the Lord of storms, and the God of knowledge and wisdom. Okay. Suddenly Klein recalled the name he had once received, one that he had directly received when he looked straight at the eternal blazing sun, White Angel. No way. Could it be that the eternal blazing sun was once an angel by the ancient sun god's side? Little sun, once mentioned that they heard that guys, I'm about to have some of the best fucking theories you've ever heard. Heard in escalations, presence, and prophecy of the matter of the afternoon town. Once of the sentences was the king often came to the place belonging to the dusk to conspire. The eternal blazing sun was originally named White Angel, which is also the king of angels and one that betrayed the creator. And he, and the Lord of Storms, and the God of knowledge and wisdom, and the dark infant who has no idea what it represents, had benefited the most from consuming the City of Silver's creator. The Bibles of the various churches mention that the three most ancient deities were born from the original creative spirit. In a sense, it's actually hinting at this dark history. If my theories are correct, when the Lord of Storms and the God of knowledge and wisdom are likely the kings of angels that serve the creator and ancient sun god, who the City of Silver worship, perhaps they should be addressed as White Angel and Wind Angel and Wisdom Angel. This way, all 8 kings of angels were accounted for. Dark Angel, White Angel, Wind Angel, Wisdom Angel, Angel of Imagination, Angel of Time, Angel of Fate, and Red Angel. From what Little Sun heard, and from the subsequent developments of these king of angels, it seems that apart from the 2 sons of God, Ammon and Adam, the other kings of angels had betrayed the creator. Oh my god! Okay. Had betrayed the creator. No way, this ancient sun god ended way too tragic. However, this picture might not be real. What the fuck is the point of discussing it then? Why are we talking about it then? It might be sacrilege. It just doesn't say sacrilegious, it's just sacrilege. Yo, that's sacrilege. It's still suspect. I wonder who the dark infant sitting in the ancient sun god abandonment represents. It feels like the true creator is the greatest suspect. Klein instantly thought of many matters as he felt the urge to leave and pretend that he hadn't seen the picture. That deeper, he pondered over the matter. What if Klein is the baby? What if it's Klein? What if it's depicting Klein? What if it's Willow Septon? Bro, what if it's depicting Willow Septon? We have to kill the baby. We have to kill the baby. At that instant, he felt an irresistible sense of fear. To point the feeling that the eternal blazing sun, the Lord of Storms, the God of knowledge, wisdom, and the wisdom were casting their gaze down from the astral world in his imagination. Bro, so they fully just Judased him. That's crazy. Who left the picture behind? Who could have known so many secrets and clearly be on the ancient sun god's side? Apparently fucking nobody, dude. One of the other angels or saints that have been constantly following the City of Silver creator with enduring faith, Klein back oozed with sweat as his body trembled slightly. Although Alger's observation abilities were inferior to Miss Justice, he was an experienced beyonder in this environment that needed a high sense of vigilance and awareness that wasn't difficult for him to notice that something odd happened to Cameron Sparrow. What happened? He asked in a suppressed tone. Klein suddenly snapped to his senses and made Senior move his gaze away as he pointed the circular region in the middle. You'll know just by looking at it. A picture that can make Garamond tremble. Will it make me lose control immediately? It's probably not a problem since he's not stopping me, but suggesting that I take a look. However, I cannot eliminate the possibility that he has already lost his reasoning and is just acting normal. Many thoughts flashed through Alger's mind, but ultimately he staidly walked towards the central region, lantern in hand. After about 8 steps, he saw the gloomy picture. Just 3 seconds, Alger's hand trembled with the dagger and lantern in his grip. It was as though he was suffering from some kind of mental illness. Thanks to the world Garamond, he had once seen the 6 Orthodox deities, anthropomorphic statues in the Terror Gathering. He naturally recognized the arm-eating, heart-ripping, and brain-guzzling figures and represented the Lord of Storms, Eternal Blazing Sun, and the God of Knowledge and Wisdom. In the past, he has committed a disloyal act in the church whilst under Kalangos' coercion. He joined the Tarot Club and distanced himself from the Chasm of Storms, believing in Mr. Fool and wished to gain more strength and power. And he leaked the church's intel and was unmotivated in certain matters. Even so, he ultimately believed himself to be a believer of the Lord of Storms. Bro, not anymore. I'll bet someone who wasn't devout and passionate enough, but at the moment he felt deep down in his heart that he had committed a grave sin of sacrilege. He nearly dug out his eyes in horror. That's no. To not kill himself directly, it means that he really had become a false believer. Alger didn't dare take another look as he turned around to look at Garamond Sparrow. Without a trembling voice, he asked, "Those three are kings of angels?" "I can't give you confirmation. All I can say is that the eternal blazing sun is ultimately connected to the white angel," Klein vaguely answered. As expected, Alger immediately felt that the possibility that the Lord of Storms and the eternal blazing sun of the god of knowledge and wisdom were once kings of angels. As for Garamond Sparrow not being able to confirm the situation, he wasn't too surprised. It wasn't odd since he was only a blessed and not Mr. Fool. Alger was just about to say something when he heard a sharp screech. It was as though whoa. It was as though something, when he heard a sharp screech, it was as though someone was using their fingernails to scratch the lid off a stone coffin. Okay. What song should I change back to? I have like 6. I'm gonna assume, don't tell me. This one. Yep, I was right. I got it right. It's just taking a minute to fucking load. Oh no, it's just because of this. Are you guys ready? It was as though someone was using their fingernails to scratch the lid of a stone coffin. No, it wasn't an analogy. It was exactly what was happening. Swing, rip, sizzle. Sharp drawing sounds of scratching sounds from 3 stone coffins on both side lids and heavy lids were either flung open or blasted open with 3 warped figures that stood up. One of them wore an ancient white robe and nearly turned gray. Its face was riddled with pockmarks, and across its neck, forehead, and back were the hands of deep eyes. Inside the figure was a huge palms and thick figures that looked as though they were made of wood. Slanted around the bodies, layers of yellow-green pus and mist, same colors emanated out of it, seemingly capable of eroding away the stone coffin. Up opposite the two was a figure in a tattered brown jacket, with a triangular hat and a skull on it. Many parts of its skin had rotted away, revealing the bone beneath. Under its clothes and parts, thick and slimy tentacles that had fish scales embedded inside the burrow outside, and the releasing, domineering, savage, tyrannous, and terrifying aura. This event made Klein feel as though he was facing a high sequence beyond her from the storm pathway. However, its body didn't appear to reach that level. The 3 deceased bodies that crawled out of the coffins cast their eyes in the direction of Garamond Sparrow and Alger. One produced silver bolts of lightning that cracked and We're gonna wait and see before I say anything, because it might be really fucking stupid, so I want to see if I'm right. One produced silver bolts of lightning that cracked lead, another reflected the dew as figures in countless eyes, and the last one spread its yellow-green mist and created brown vines. At the same time, they stormed over with loud and hurried footsteps as 6-winged gargoyles rushed over. Upon seeing this, Klein didn't panic. His Lemanos travels wielding left hand rushed into his pocket, tore open the wall of spirituality, and used his 2 fingers to pick out Kazak's copper whistle. Right on the heels of that, he flicked his wrists and threw out the copper whistle on his other side of the room. Without any surprise, he saw the 3 deceased bodies with terrifying auras turn around and rush towards it like a trained hound. Upon seeing the scene, Alger gazed before he made the decision. He threw his lantern and rushed for the door. His expectant told him that while Garamond Sparrow could deal with the 3 terrifying deceased, he needed to hold back the 6-winged gargoyle to prevent it from interfering with the crazy adventure of battle. Just as Alger arrived at the door, he saw the double door cracked. A 6-winged gargoyle was charging in with an 8-meter-long trident. He immediately drew a gasp, and eyes burned with rage. His muscles swelled, and under the aid of the wind, he charged forward, brandishing the dagger, and swirled with silver lightning. Bang! He dodged the stone trident and smashed down as he cleaved the gargoyle's abdomen and dagger. Suddenly sparks flew and rubble sprayed everywhere. Alger flew backwards as the gargoyle charged with disruption. Alger he'd slammed into the ground as he had created an air cushion in time. He didn't suffer any serious injuries, and that moment the 3 deceased bodies had gathered together and vied for Azek's copper whistle. Klein looked at them and calmly flipped them out his travels and charred yellow pages and completed patterns and symbols. This was a demigod level power that he recently recorded lightning storm. Then Klein slid one finger across the notebook page with the death nail wielding hand. At the same time, he looked at the 3 mutated deceased bodies who were vying for Isaac's copper whistle. With a deep voice, he greeted them. Bye-bye. Amidst sizzling sound, bolts of lightning burst forward, meshing together from hurricanes enveloping to where regions where Isaac's copper whistle was, as well as the 3 deceased bodies. The entire tomb was instantly lit up like a daytime, even when Alger nearly fainted to open his eyes. His body intrinsically trembled as a result of a terrifying aura. With the aid of the wind, had leaped in a hurricane, taking from his eyes. He once again charged at the 6-winged gargoyle that emanated to attack Gammon Sparrow. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm gonna do this all capitals, because it's in all capitals and it looks cool. Because you know what? This chapter title would describe some of you guys, just so you're aware. Just so you're aware, aside from the Sailor Pathway, Raging Blow, Alger knew that he didn't have any powers that were adequate against a 6-winged gargoyle, strong body due to its immunity to lightning strikes. Of course, directly creating a resonant was hearing organs and body of heat and mind through use of its singing, and most effective method. If this encounter had been anywhere else, Alger definitely would have exploded. No, it's exploited. You fucking idiot. The gargoyle's great weight and lack for the agility to circle around. Then he sang to the effect as he would attack the same spot, and sharp wind blades slowly grinding away his enemy through the cumulative damage over time. But now this was a catacomb, and due to the environmental limitations, any act of directly avoiding it would only cause the gargoyle to turn its gaze to Gammon Sparrow. It would then attack the crazy adventurer with its long meter trident, preventing him from seizing the opportunity to finish off the 3 deceased bodies. And most important of all, Alger suspected that his singing will have more adverse effects on Gammon Sparrow than what the gargoyle is capable of. The stone trident clashed heavily with the ground, blasting open an exaggerated crater. It left the catacombs snaking as if the earthquake had happened. As for Alger, he didn't attempt to parry it. With the help of his strong winds, he dodged the right and soared up, agilely dodging the gargoyle's attacks. He dashed for the monster's head. At that moment, he saw the grayish-white eyes twitch, burned with flames. Alger's mind turned sluggish as his body instantly stiffened. He had the feeling of being petrified again, but his skin didn't show any signs of spraying grayish-white colors. Thanks to the inertia... My book went away again. There it is. He continued soaring upwards, but he wasn't able to brandish his dagger. He slammed straight into the gargoyle's head before loudly being repelled backwards, his body aching in pain. The heavy grayish-white trident reflected in his eyes. Again, as his thoughts were sluggish, making it impossible for him to put on any effective resistance. Suddenly, his hand grabbed him by the shoulder and pulled him back to the side. Bang! The rubble flew and sparks were produced. The gargoyle's heavy trident blasted open the huge crater again. Alger's body trembled as vision regained his clarity, while his thoughts were rapidly restored back to normal. It was like someone who woke up from an indiscernible nightmare when he was helpless against the rained control over his body. Only then did he realize that Gammon Sparrow had appeared by his side. There were still remnant flashes of lightning and sizzling around the corner where the 3 deceased bodies were. Do not lock gazes with it. Attack its chest. As Klein pulled Alger away and quickly bid the dodge, a stone trident succinctly advised his companion. Alger had previously experienced the witness many battles, so without further explanation from Gammon Sparrow, he knew what the latter meant. He stopped receiving aimed as he nimbly circled the gargoyle's flank. Tap, tap, tap. He ran toward the gargoyle and waited for the stone trident to sweep over it before soaring high up in the help of the strong gales to dodge the attack. Whoosh. Another hurricane pushed Alger toward the gargoyle's chest. During this process, he closed his eyes and pulled back his right arm and indulged his muscles. Then, with his ability to judge discern the seafarers, he threw out the dagger wielding right fist. Howling wind blades and sizzling lightning were emanating along the fist. Alger's right fist heaved, struck... No, it's not coming... Come back! Come back! Come back! Why are you doing this right now? Why? Why is my book not loading? Come back. There it is. Ha 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 ha. Alger's right fist heavily struck to the gargoyle's chest, producing an explosive effect. It caused Gargoyle's stone to be covered in fine cracks. The silver lightning snaked around, following that the cracks widened and depressed into a pit. With the cracking sound, the dagger exploded, turning into countless fragments and scattered everywhere. The strong recoil sent Alger flying back in midair. He saw through the corners of his eyes and the hatred Garin Sparrow had at some point in Kane circled to the front of the cocked his revolver. Right on the heels of that, he, cold adventurer, suddenly raised his hand and aimed the black barrel right to the gargoyle. Amidst the loud echo, the bullet tore through the pit of the gargoyle's chest and pierced it. Following the explosive boom, the grayish-white stone monster convulsed a few times before the flames in the eyes were extinguished. After a brief pause, it collapsed like a mountain, producing an exaggerated sound, earthquake-like shaking. Deathnail had delivered a lethal blow. At that moment, Alger had maintained his balance and found his footing thanks to the wind. Klein didn't speak to him or search for the spoils of war. He immediately turned around and headed for the charred area where Azek's copper whistle sat silently. Slipping tentacles covered in fish scales moved as the deceased body was nearly half its body gone. He stood up. Bolts of lightning continued snaking around its body. It was domineering savage Tyrannus' deceased body in tattered brown jacket and triangular cap hat. It was missing from the left arm and left leg, as well as having its head, its body covered in traces of charred and metal flesh. But even so, it didn't sleep in peace. It was still attempting to fuse with surrounding flesh and blood in order to obtain a stronger state. Once had to know that Klein had used Lightning Storm, which was recorded in the Sea Storm Scepter. Even if the recording reduced its might, it might definitely be beyond a power at the demigod level. Just the fact that the other two deceased were silent without letting out a grunt was a testament of its might. This awakened deceased's body is problematic. Klein's heart stirred as he made Senior leap into the smooth surface of Azek's copper whistle before attempting to reflect into the deceased fish scales and slippery tentacle. At that moment, through the marionette, Klein sensed a tyrannical and high-level repulsive force. The wraith was unable to possess it. Senior was even repelled, as it couldn't help but lose its invisibility. Upon seeing this, Alger didn't question the situation. He raised his hand and created a spiraling wind around the deceased body. Hoping to restrain its actions, however, the wind didn't sweep inwardly. It thought about it was afraid of something. It was forcefully dissipated as it rapidly vanished. The only thing to be happy about was the deceased body didn't immediately attack the duo. Instead, it jumped to the left, bent its back, and attempted to pick up Azek's copper whistle. Klein immediately flicked its wrist precisely, flipped them out as travels to the page with the abyss shackles. This was the Beyond of Powers which Emlyn had recorded, one belonging to the sequence of vampires. Klein swiped his death knell wielding right hand into the notebook, and the shadows around the deceased body suddenly came to life and manifest chains and shackled it firmly to the ground. Taking advantage of the opponent's brief pause, Klein raised its revolver in deadpan manner. Different colors, red, green, and white, immediately appeared in its vision. Aiming the white, Klein pulled the trigger. Bang! A pale golden beam shot to the head of the deceased body, causing it to rapture immediately into a spray of blood. At the same time, the purifying bullet also emanated a sun-like radiance and illuminated the target's body. The deceased body melted like wax as it was bent its waist and lost its balance, collapsing right beside Azek's copper whistle. Monsters without any intelligence and only moved as intact are much easier to deal with than Beyonders with the same level. However, am I letting my copper whistle down? Ever since it was given to me, it suffered explosions and catharsis of lightning and the purification of sunlight. Life sure isn't easy for it. Klein repeated for a second before controlling Senior to pick up the ancient and exquisite copper whistle and stacking it inside the body. He didn't directly head over, afraid that the deceased body would awaken, hence he continued letting Senior to investigate the fellow who could resist the possession effect. Klein suspected that the deceased had an item rather than a high level. Soon Senior, in his non-wraith form, touching something and pulled it out. It was a card. On the face of the card was a man wearing a papal tiara with both hands held up. Before him, I love that it says tiara. Before him were prostrated believers, and behind him were lightning, dark clouds, gales, and waves. Klein was very familiar with the man because he had a portrait of his person in another set of attire. It was Emperor Roselle. I love how he's wearing a tiara. Fucking yes. Shut up! And to the top of the left, the pomp dress Roselle, there was a line, form, sequence, resplendent, starlight, sequence, 0, tyrant. Fuck yeah, we're gonna get another card! The card of blasphemy from the storm pathway, the tyrant card. Klein instinctively recalled how the Church of the God of Knowledge and Wisdom addressed the Lord of Storm's tyrant. Alger also saw the card of blasphemy as the gaze instantly flames and greed soared up his eyes. He looked to the deep breath and moved his gaze away as he looked to his side and said the battle was intense. Perhaps another Other entities deep inside the cathedral have been awoken by us, so let's store away the things we quickly as possible and prepare to leave. Mr. Hangman, do you think you are not aware of that? There's no need for you to nag. What happened to our tactic teamwork before? Indeed, the tyrant card has affected you, and you can hardly calm down. You have become talkative. As Klein got Ray Sr. to pick up the card of blasphemy and enter... Yes! And enter one of the deceased bodies and accelerate the production of Bionic characteristics, he coldly said, "You've already wasted 5 seconds." Fucking love Gavin Sparrow so much. Alger was taken aback without saying another word. He walked to the remnant of the six-winged gargoyle and dug out the eyeball and glowed red. Then he patiently waited for a moment and recalled into the shattered back and excellence of the gargoyle translucent crystal. Elsewhere, with the wraith's help, the deceased body that was covered in yellowish green pus placed a blob of brown soil. It had roots in the hidden blood vessels. It appeared rather strange. Without wasting its time to the sequence pathway, it belonged to Klein, got Senior to store away before heading to the deceased body. Slippery tentacles were still twitching to accelerate the production of character. Seeing that it looked like a jellyfish with azure blue water and taken form, Klein and Alger suddenly heard and dragged out sound. The sign came from deep within the cathedral, bringing along an indiscernible sense of ancientness. It's going to be someone. And then, this is also my last chapter. Guys, we read so many chapters. And I'm so proud of us. I'm actually just really proud of me that I was able to read this many. The long sigh that sounded from deep in the cathedral had left the back muscles of Klein and Alger tense as they pumped with adrenaline. Without any hesitation, Klein's left gloves turned transparent and he vanished, appearing behind the hangman. As he reached out and grabbed his shoulder, Senior picked up a jellyfish-like Bionic characteristic, and with the help of don't speak just yet. Don't speak just yet, because I will get distracted. With the help of Minor Leap, returned to the gold coin inside the iron cigar case. Right on the heels of Klein and Alger's bodies turned incorporeal and invisible, leaving the catacombs silently again. The two of them were directly teleported into mid-air, the distance away, and the figures came. I do see why. I really do. Teleported into mid-air and distance away, the figures came into existence. Amidst the shadows and clouds and the crimson moonlight, subconsciously Klein and Alger turned their heads in unison and looked at the primitive island, wishing to know if any changes would happen to it. When they heard the sigh, they had relied on their instincts and experience to imminent escape despite not sensing any actual danger. Now they could help but feel curious and puzzled. In their vision, the thick mist and cloaked primitive island had quickly dispersed. The moonlight shone straight down without any obstructing it. Amidst howling winds, Klein and Alger floated in mid-air as they saw the primitive island's present state through the sparse mist. It had vanished. The primitive island had become a demigod feathered serpent, and all kinds of bionic creatures had vanished. The region it was in dark blue seawater, which was almost black and ebbing slightly. Nothing appeared out of the ordinary. Alger could help but reach out his hand into his pocket, where he touched the six-winged gargoyle crystal that had left his mind sluggish. If not for the battle spoils still being in existence, he would have suspected that it was all a dream. He wondered if he and Gavin Sparrow had somewhat gotten lost, that they hadn't found the real primitive island, and ended up completing an exploration in their dreams. Klein had similar thoughts as well. He even felt that though the hallucinating... Can I change the music back? After all, the giants, more powerful creatures and hidden secrets from the mystical items could vanish without a word. Even the seawater didn't show any corresponding signs of the existence. Thankfully, it didn't hesitate at all and chose the immediate escape. Otherwise, Mr. Hangman and I might really vanish, never to be found again. Klein suddenly felt a deep sense of joy. He didn't dare stay any longer as he activated traveling once again and vanished with Alger as they traversed into the spirit world. And the final scene of his body and the water froze in their eyes was a mist spreading once again with indiscernible distancy. After another teleportation, Klein and Alger returned to the deserted island. They stood at the reef, watched the waves strike the shore loudly. Alger looked around and heaved a silent sigh of relief. He took out the core crystal, the six-winged gargoyle, and said, "This was a shard spoil of war. You get to choose first." Can I change the music back, or do I have to still listen to this? After weighing the matter, be considered to six-winged gargoyle and the monster that the duo had killed together. As for the three deceased bodies, they were solely Gavin Sparrow's. Klein didn't directly respond, or something going... Okay. Yes, change. Okay. Oh my god. Should I just start all the musics at once? Dude, is this what losing... Hold up, is this what losing control is like? This is what it's like to lose control? Dude. Bro, the true creator was in the building with us. That was so fucking funny. Remove the pin tag. Okay, I'll remove it now. Unpin message. We can go back, bro. Bro, you guys can speak again. You're not silenced anymore. The ravings helped the silence. You can speak again. Bro, I can speak again. I love how I was able to finish all of this. Watch me take 30 minutes to finish this chapter now, because I'm just gonna yap. After doing all of this, he said, "One battle I'll choose first thrice." He meant that in battle the duo faced, they had fought 3 deceased bodies and 6 winged gargoyles. He had contributed greatly to the entire battle, so the spoils of war received in the tomb belonged to the pool. Of course, based on the contribution, Garamond Sparrow had the right to choose first, and chose 3 consecutive times. What a fucking little spoiled pea. He's like, I want this, and this, and this, and this, and this. But same. Alder was taken aback and he gained a new understanding of the crazy adventurer. He then nodded okay. Klein immediately reached his hand towards the marionette and calmly took the tyrant card of Roselle's face on it. Absolutely. Like, I feel like here's the thing. You can choose everything. You're not, like, why the fuck would you let Alder take a card of blasphemy? And if you did, I would just be the fool and be like, yo, you know that card you took? Give it to me now, or I will kill you. This was also very useful acting as a sea god. Of course, the greatest value the Time card provided was the high sequence potion form as the storm pathway, as well as the suitable ability to sense the ingredients needed reaching sequence 4. And it was precisely because of this that Klein didn't wait till they returned to the city of Generosity Bam to split the spoils of war. He was afraid that the Tyrant card would directly attract seeking Jan Kottman. Bro, here's the thing. Garamond Sparrow and Jan Kottman, fucking enemies to lovers, bro. They got generational beef. It's up to you to say how many times it counts. Alder didn't retort, nor did he plan on objecting to Garamond Sparrow's claim as he watched as Garamond Sparrow reached for the jellyfish-like original Beyond a characteristic, which likely corresponded to the ocean songster. To Klein, it could be used to create a mystical item in the Storm Domain, thus replacing the Murloc cufflink that had been taken away by Admiral Hal. It could also be bestowed by the Roast Archipelago Resistance in the future to raise their survivability at sea. Of course, of course, the condition was that it had greatly pleased Sea God. Putting away the Tyrant card and the jellyfish-like Beyond a characteristic, Klein glanced at the Hangman, indicating that it was his turn to choose. Alder deliberately said, "Can I choose sequence 4 potion for me love, the card of blasphemy?" "No problem." Klein nodded without much of an expression. "I'll give it to you in the future." Although the Tyrant card had been activated using its bound was caused quite a stir, therefore it was a safe plan. Klein planned on heading above the Great Fog to study after he returned to Backlund. Alright, even with Alder's still Thank you. I like to think so too. I don't think it gives chat room vibes, you know? Drinking an additional potion wasn't a big problem, even if it had been given birth to a child. Just time was that of going from sequence 5 to sequence 4 in the quantitative. No, not Omegle. Stop. I have PTSD from Omegle when I was like 12 years old. I should not have been on it. I remember it was like one of the, it's one of those things you do when you're like a kid and you go on Omegle and you're like, ha ha ha, this is so funny. And then you're just like, oh my god, I'm traumatized and scarred for the rest of my life. Quantitative transformation. It was subliminal. Yeah, dude, no, that's what I'm saying. Is like I remember being a kid and going on Omegle and like you just do it and you're like, oh, this is so funny. And then you do it and then you're like, I'm now scarred for the rest of my life. Yeah. Yup. My parents should not have let me have internet access at such a young age. I saw too much. Let the clues point towards the mutated deceased body in a primitive island. It was likely a powerful pirate who had once active at sea before suddenly vanishing. This way, the upper echelons of the Church of Storms would definitely suspect that the powerful missing pirate would obtain the Card of Blasphemy, and this undeniable. Bro, I fucking loved Club Penguin. That was so cool. And Webkins. I don't know if you guys had Webkins. I remember I had Webkins, Club Penguin. There was another one that I always used to play. It was called Pop Tropica. And you like would go and find No, that's what I'm saying. Omega was cursed. It was cursed. It was like, it was so scary. I hated it. See, Pop Tropica was the fucking best. And I remember I almost cleared all the maps. I might have played 2. Yeah. Like, it was... pissed me off. And then I remember, what was the map? Skullduggery. Skullduggery used to piss me off so much because you had to get the big ship and you had to fight him, but you just had to continue playing. So like that was one of the ones where it was like you literally just played it, but you played other ones and you would just go back to make sure you had enough money to buy the ship. That one always pissed me off. And then there was one other one. I think there was, what was the rabbit one where you had to like solve the cases? And there's like, I loved the spy one. Mythology one was super cool. There was Pop Tropica Island where like the Greek myth one was so much fun. And then there was Pop Tropica Island where I remember you had to like try not to get voted off. That one was super cool because it was just Survivor. What other ones was there? I fucking hated the bunny one. The bunny one pissed me off. Trying to think. I always loved the Greek god one. I always loved the outfits you could put them in, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so pretty, so fun. Okay, I need to lock in. See, this is literally, like I said, this one chapter is gonna take me so long. Because you guys kept me silent the entire time. I need to watch as Gamer and Sparrow took away the brown soil like bionic characteristic. Glancing at the remaining items, he put the grayish-white translucent crystal and handed it to the six-winged gargoyle eyeball to Gamer and Sparrow. With him not lacking any powerful offensive means and him being well-rounded when it came to the sea and land, it was rather useful for him to beyond our ingredients could be made to a mystical item. With him not lacking any powerful offensive means and him being well-rounded when it came to the sea and land, it was rather useful for him to beyond our ingredient could be made into a mystical item. Back in the tomb, it wasn't because he was uncertain if psychological piercing could affect the gargoyle, but the battle situation didn't allow for any mistakes. He would have chosen the first use of the whip of mine. After splitting the spoils of war, putting them in a different box and sealing them with the wall of spirituality, Klein stored away Senior, reaching out his hands and grabbed the hangman. Their figures turned faint and entered the spirit world. After the traveling was complete, the two appeared on the mountain beside the sea's Bayam city outskirts. It was still close to the cemetery. It was as though they had never left. Alger didn't harp on the topic as he nodded at Gammon Sparrow. If you need any mystical items created, I shall bear the corresponding cost. It's my pleasure working with you. Wearing the transparent glove, Klein tersely answered before vanishing. He left the hangman behind and directly teleported himself to a secluded corridor in Bayam. Next, I need to select a lucky pirate. Klein surveyed his area and muttered silently and stretched his fingers before walking out into the street. Of course, he didn't forget to change his appearance. He also smeared blood over Lamanna's travels. After all, there were bounty notices everywhere for Gammon Sparrow. And Sea King Jan Cotman remained in this city. If he were recognized or got lost, things would be pretty nasty. On the mountainside outside the city, Alger looked up at the dark night where there were crimson moon and the countless stars. He slowly inhaled and exhaled, allowing the refreshing and saltiness of the seaside to cleanse his body. The exploration had completed the most dangerous adventure he had ever had. If not for the teleportation of Gammon Sparrow's creeping hunger, he doubted that they could escape alive. However, as Mr. Fool is blessed, the world should have other trump cards. For example, those demigod beyond our powers in Lamanna's travels. But in that case, we might not have successfully reached the tomb, with us encountering more trouble along the way. Yes, the card of blasphemy of the storm pathway is the target that made him restrain his madness. This was an instruction from Mr. Fool. He had already foreseen it, perhaps. He even knows the existence that... See, this is a thing. Actually, I'll hold my comments for the end. Produced a sigh from deep within the cathedral. Back when Kalangos might have seen the tyrant card, but had lacked the ability to obtain it, that might be why he said that. Alger's mind churned, and he slowly walked to the foot of the mountain. Chapter 8:15. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, Klein just gets so lucky with, like, stuff happening where it's like, bro, that was literally just a coincidence. Klein was just as shocked to see the card there as you. It just happened to be, like, you know, awesome. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. That took us like just over 2.5 hours. Really locked in, read it, really proud of us. And to be totally honest, about 20 minutes of that was this last chapter because I was yip-yapping. Anyway, thanks so much for coming. See you guys tomorrow. As always, it was a treat. I wasn't going to use that word. I don't like that word. That word and me don't get along very well. I get a little scared when that word happens. So that's all I'm going to say. Anyway, I think I'm going to mull on it for my theories because I have ideas, but I know they're going to be fucking stupid. It doesn't matter how long I mull on them. I'm also really hungry because I haven't ate yet. Yeah, I'm going to post another theory video now that I've got new information. Because guess what? No, I'm not going to say that. It's fucking stupid. Yeah, I'll post another theory video, which is going to be amazing. I do wonder if... Here's the thing. I do wonder if, like... Because you know how, like, cannibalism is a thing in this, and, like, people need to eat other people? Because, like, here's the thing. Like, to get beyond our characteristics, like, you do really just have to, like, consume the soul and, like, the food of other people and, like, creatures. So I'm wondering if that's because, like, you know how they were eating the ancient sun god? I'm wondering if that's because they ate the ancient sun god. But didn't kill him, but they ate him, you know? I gotta workshop it. So, we're gonna do that. I'm gonna say goodnight. You guys have a great day, or you guys have a great night. Whichever one you're doing. I hope it's amazing. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.